Greetings, one and all, and welcome to another edition of the Breakfast Club Jamboree. Got that funk here with my friend Raven. How you doing, Raven? One and all, and welcome to.
Oh, I'm all right. I actually have the video open, playing in another window. Hang on.
Here with my friend Raven.
There we go.
There we go. That was me back. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you heard it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. So anyway, and welcome to the viewers to the show tonight, and thank you for coming. Feel free to give us some comments in the comment section and let us know if there's something in particular that you want to talk about that we may or may not take up. I'm certainly not going to fall for any of that bait that was there before the show opened. But anyway, yeah, one thing that happened this weekend that I thought we could talk about before the rest of the gang got here. Is the fact that on set, I guess day before yesterday, Alec Baldwin shot the cinematographer for his movie Rust and also injured the director. And, I got lots of feelings about this. I hate it when the press calls any kind of shooting an accidental shooting. I don't like the word accident because it implies a lack of negligence, and to me, it's negligence. If you have a firearm in your hands, there's certain rules you're supposed to obey. And right. The number one rule, as far as I was ever taught, was don't point your gun at someone unless you want to shoot them. Right.
Well, I mean, the scene they were shooting called for him pointing the gun at the camera, and that's what he did. It wasn't like a careless, pointing and firing. He was following the script. That's what he was supposed to do.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. I've got mixed feelings about all of it. I think if you don't, that means your mind is made up as far as whether or not you like Alec Baldwin, I think.
Oh, right. I got no opinion about Alec Baldwin. I think he does a very good Trump impression, though. As a person, I don't really know very much about Alec Baldwin, so I don't really have an opinion. But I will say that, I mean, as negligent as it may or may not have been, I mean, he's got to feel pretty awful. As obviously the families of the victims must feel awful, but I mean, everyone involved must feel awful. I mean, I'm not sure. My gal told me that apparently there was the B team on set that day because people had walked off because of previous misfirings of the gun earlier during filming. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but if that is true,
I mean, Hollywood. Over the last several weeks, there's like a strike brewing, industry-wide. We're talking about 60,000 employees, 60,000 workers walking off the job. And that would include the union workers that were on that set. So all over the industry, there's people walking off of jobs now.
Sure.
Not necessarily, striking, just like, yeah, fuck this shit. But for whatever reason, I'm done. This guy's an asshole, or they're not following the rules, or whatever. It isn't safe. Whatever the reasoning, because of the brewing strike, it gives them this feeling of justification to walk away. And it's, from what I understand, kind of what happened here. That there was issues with the gun, or because there were 3 guns that are actually on set for this particular project. They were all on a cart. So from what I understand is that there had been issues with the gun, not necessarily misfiring, just basically because, not firing properly, I guess is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously, someone handed Alec Baldwin the gun and told him it was safe. That's my understanding.
Apparently, like two or three people had the gun before him, and they all basically examined the weapon. They all did what they were supposed to do, supposedly what they were supposed to do, before it got to his hands, and they said it cleared. The gun was good. It was cold, is what they said. It was a cold gun, and apparently not.
Right. It's just unspeakably tragic, but I mean, I don't know. I just unintentional is one thing, that works for me. You definitely didn't intend to shoot the people. I get that, But when people use the word accidental, I just get kind of angry because I just wish we would get out of that mentality, you know.
Yeah, with a firearm, there should never be an accident. Either you pulled the trigger or you didn't.
Right.
You know, and I don't know. I mean, like I said, 2 or 3 people supposedly had examined the gun before him. But I still think there was a responsibility on his part to check it. He's the one that's holding it. He's the one that has to fire it. So anything that happens, I mean, it's his hand that's on the gun.
I have like a radical idea that it's kind of so obvious that I almost can't believe I'm the person saying it. Why don't they just like have literal prop non-functional guns, and when the gun's supposed to fire, just CGI that blast?
A lot of movies do that now. A lot do. You know, yeah. There's a direction they're already going in. Some productions are still using, you know, guns. And that's like a Dream Machine. Prop guns aren't supposed to be able to kill people. But there's a difference between a prop gun and a gun that's a prop. Those are two different things. Like a prop gun doesn't have a trigger that you can, you know, it's a non-functioning, doesn't necessarily have a barrel. It's basically a generic gun shape that might be rubber or something like that. That's a prop gun. But for like close-up scenes where they're going to be pulling the trigger and all that stuff, and you know where you're going to be able to see the gun, then they use a gun that's a prop, and it's usually made inoperable unless they're going to use it to fire blanks. But
yeah,
should an actor be trained to know if a gun is safe? I was trained in the military, so I don't know if it's fair to ask me. Because I, from my point of view, it doesn't take a whole lot to know if a gun is safe. I don't know, and that just might be because of my training. I just don't think it's that big of a deal to look to know.
Well, I mean, it's certainly not the first time that someone's been shot on set. You know what I mean? It's happened a number of times, either accidentally or negligently, or whatever you want to call it. You know.
And after Brandon Lee, they had changed all the rules because of his death. His death was supposed to stop this.
And there was another actor years ago whose name escapes me right now. He died. He was very young, and he put a gun to his own head, with a blank in it. But of course, it's still an explosion, and you can't put an explosion right next to your scalp like that and expect not to die. So he did die, but I can't remember his name.
I don't remember either. Yeah, but he got killed by the blank. No, you don't look down the barrel. You know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I mean, I don't know. Like I say, I feel bad for everybody involved, but this is like a moot point to the overall point. But do you think they're going to actually finish the movie now?
I don't know. I was thinking about that. I don't know.
Because they finished The Twilight Zone after someone had their head chopped off by a helicopter.
Yeah, that's true. Really true.
I'm sure in the filming of what's that movie with the horses and the chariots? Really old movie. Ben-Hur. Someone got thrown from a chariot and trampled by horses in that movie, but they still kept the scene in. You know. Yeah.
Well, Alec Baldwin has a history of being an asshole.
Does he?
He has a temper. He's a bit of a bully. He's gotten in trouble for beating people up.
Oh, wow.
So there are a lot of people out there that are just like, you know, he should go to jail. You know, he should be charged. You know, he should go to jail. The guy's an asshole, blah, 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 blah. There's other people speculating that the person who prepped the gun for him might be a Trumper that was, hoping that Baldwin would get hurt or at least, arrested for killing this person. I know all kinds of crazy shit like that. I don't know. Alec Baldwin is an asshole, though. He is an asshole. That doesn't change anything about what happened here.
Right. Oh, I personally think, it has to be tried on its merits, and I don't, I'd have to be in the trial and see the evidence and blah, 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 to really have an informed enough opinion to really know one way or the other. But it just doesn't sit right with me, because anytime there's a fatal discharge from anyone, like whether it's a toddler or whatever, a lot of these questions come up. You know what I mean? And yeah.
I mean, and it comes down to, like with a toddler, right? I mean, you have who is responsible for the gun, and in a case like that, it's going to be the owner of the gun or the kid's parents, depending on what the circumstances are. With this,
the toddler has considerably less agency than Alec Baldwin.
Right, exactly, and this kind of a thing is like, well, who's responsible? Well, I mean, yeah, people checked the gun before him, but at the end of the day, he held the gun, he pointed it, he pulled the trigger. Yeah, all of that stuff was innocent, obviously, even though it was part of his job. Nonetheless, somebody died. So, who's responsible? Ultimately, he is. And I think he knows that.
Negligent homicide, then, or manslaughter, or less.
I would hate to see him get charged. I would hate to see anybody in this situation get charged. At the same time, I kind of feel like, how do you not charge somebody? You know, somebody died.
Charge him, it'll be claims of privilege because of his status as an actor.
Well, I mean that too, right? But I mean, like, if somebody died, how do you not charge somebody? You know, it's not, if it's an injury, you know, but the person's okay. It's like, well, okay, you know, we'll all laugh about this later, you know. But that's not the case. Somebody died.
Like the guy who Dick Cheney shot. He was like, "Hey, bygones." You know?
Right. But I mean, somebody should be charged with something, and I don't know who, and I don't know what. But ultimately, from a firearms safety perspective, Alec Baldwin's responsible, and it sucks. And I know for some that's a very unpopular opinion, but you know, the facts are he was holding the gun, he pulled the trigger, he aimed, he fired. He should have checked the gun before he did it.
Yeah.
It's easy to trust the people that you work with. Yeah. And it's easy to trust the people that you work with, especially people where it's their jobs to make sure. But again, you know, the people that were supposed to do it, the professionals, weren't there because they walked off. So who's to blame here? Who's to blame? Alec Baldwin or this temp? Or the studio for allowing a temp to do it?
Well, I mean, I'm baffled as I say that you can have real firearms with live ammunition on a movie set at all, you know? To me, it's just...
Well, you got to remember, even a blank is considered live ammo.
Right, okay.
So, I mean, do we know if the round actually had a bullet? Was there an actual...
Yeah, it had a bullet. It didn't. That's why there's two people that got hurt, because as far as I understand it went right through the cinematographer and then hit the director behind her.
Okay.
So that's a bullet for sure. You know,
the professionals walked off because the guns weren't safe. See, I didn't hear that. I've seen people making that accusation that was the reason, but I didn't like officially hear that was the reason. They did have safety concerns, and that the guns were a concern, but that I didn't hear that was exactly why they walked off. But maybe. And if that's the case, that's kind of fucked up then, that the studio continued to use those guns. How hard is it to swap them out? Know what I mean? Know what I mean?
Well, you would think, right? I mean, you know, they can make a toothbrush that's 12 feet long look exactly like a real toothbrush, or they can make a car look this big. You know what I mean? So they can surely make a facsimile of a gun that makes a loud bang and maybe even makes some smoky fire, but doesn't actually, you know, have anything in it.
Got it. And it's a shame. I feel bad for that girl's family, her friends, everybody who cared about her. I think it's awful. I feel really, really bad.
It's awful, right?
Everybody who had to... Everybody who had to work there and witness it, I feel bad for them. Everybody on the set who is dealing with whatever it is they're dealing, I feel bad for them. I feel really, really bad for Alec Baldwin. He's a dick, but I feel really bad for him.
Well, he must be. I mean, I can't even imagine how he'd feel. I mean, if I accidentally shot someone, I don't know what I would do with myself. You know what I mean? I mean,
I mean, there's like, I my faith in humanity is slightly, lifted today. Watching how the public in general, the public at large, is dealing with this. There's all these memes, very dark Alec Baldwin memes, and they're not getting a lot of thumbs up. They're not getting a lot of shares. They're not getting lots of attention. And I think people are just kind of scrolling by, thinking, "Yeah, I don't want to weigh in because it sucks."
right.
Hi, Jack.
Hello.
Rumor has it that you were supposed to be there examining guns.
No. I've never handled guns. That's not the type of props that I work with. While I've done a lot of media prop stuff, guns and firearms, and really even swords have never really been a part of it.
So, what do you think about where do you, if it was on Jack to point the finger of responsibility, aim it?
Surprisingly, it's going to be at Alec Baldwin, not for pulling the trigger, but for being an executive producer on a non-union shoot that cut corners. It's a situation where we understand why IATSE and other unions are necessary for these kinds of film sets. This is a situation where more care, more skilled people, more consideration, less, thinking about the time frame and the budget and all those things would have saved a talented filmmaker's life, cinematographer's life, and avoided the director an injury. So from my point of view, this is an issue of it is carelessness, but it's carelessness that is rectifiable through the things that the stage unions have been working for decades in order to avoid these errors.
So you say careless to the point of reckless?
I'd say it. I mean, I wasn't there. I can't tell you if it was reckless, but there's certainly things that other shoots. This doesn't happen very often. I mean, we all
Right.
know that Brandon Lee was the last, really famous example of this. And I do have a little bit of insight about that shoot. That one was a union shoot, so it's not like carelessness is, exclusively happens in situations where there isn't a union present. But it's also the case that we haven't had these kind of accidents very often in media. And, that was more than 20 years ago that Brandon Lee was shot. I think also COVID has, pressed film productions to kind of work within a tighter budget than they have before. The economics of the business are changing. But those are just some of my thoughts. I think that's part of what contributed to it.
Fair enough. It's a good jumping off point to take a little bitty, whatever, because I'm sure y'all have noticed that union movements across the country are really sort of starting to get some teeth. And there's an awful lot of different unions striking for different reasons around the country. And generally speaking, I'm sort of pro-union, and I'm not really I'm not against striking in the way certain people are against striking. For example, when I lived in the UK, oftentimes there'd be strikes on the railways. And of course, a lot of people like me, I was one of these people, depend on the trains to get to work. I mean, there's no way to get to work for some of my jobs if I wasn't able to ride the trains. But because the workers, in my opinion, had a good argument, i.e., London can't function without them. Simple as that. They have an awful lot of bargaining power. And from my point of view, they weren't asking for too much. So I'm like, yeah, go ahead and flex your power. That's okay. It inconveniences me. But a lot of people are like, this inconveniences me, and therefore I don't support the strike. And that's the opposite of the way it used to be 100 years ago. And I think it's interesting that
or
back
even
in the
50
1920s,
years
the labor
ago.
movements across America were really strong and often, unfortunately, maybe a little too violent, but they got results, right? And we're having another sort of union push now. And I think it's partly because of COVID. A lot of people are just like, quite frankly, I've had enough and the status quo is not good enough anymore.
Yeah, well, there's been a diminishment of worker power for the last 40 years.
Right.
And, 50 years ago, people were pretty supportive. I mean, I grew up during the grape boycott, during workers' solidarity against Dole pineapple and Chiquita banana and some of the other fruit companies at the time. And, in most cases, like Cesar Chavez was thought of as a hero to at least a large percentage of Americans. It's difficult to see that kind of recognition of the usefulness and power of union solidarity today. And I think we're just sort of rediscovering it. In some ways, we're, almost starting from scratch with this. And so it means some of the excesses and problems on every side are also going to occur again, including, police violence against union strikes.
Yeah. And way back in the early days, you had sort of non-police, but sort of militia groups that tried to bust strikes and whatever. Like, was it the Pinkerton boys or something? Yeah.
The Pinkertons, which we know of as PIs, where the term private investigator originates from, was Pinkerton Investigations.
I did not know that.
They were essentially hired gun private army. They were also sort of the FBI before the FBI existed, a private FBI that you would hire in order to usually do corporate espionage. But the thing that really, built the Pinkertons' existence is largely, strike busting. And they never stopped that. In fact, when there's arguably the U.S. has had more than one civil war, and one of those civil wars involved the Pinkertons in a shootout with mine workers over a river, in what was essentially a private army versus a workforce.
That's kind of scary. I mean, because I don't know. I mean, the way things are going these days, and the way law and order seems to be more sort of fluid these days than it ever used to be. You know what I mean? I mean, that's a whole other topic, though. Yeah, I kind of worry that we're coming to a time when, and Jack, you've made the point in the show before that America's always been a violent country, and I think it just seems there's a lot of people itching for it right now. That's all.
Yeah, and in some ways, we're the least violent we've ever been, and then we have this sort of resurgence of violent tendencies. I think that there's probably not going to be a situation where we return to our most violent past. After all, this is a country that committed, genocide over an entire peoples, and there were the Indian Wars, and there's many other things that this country has done in the past. And I hope we're not returning to our worst excesses, but I think we're facing a period where things will get more violent for a while.
So, I mean, I wanted to really quick, because I want to piggyback that in a second, but Green Machine saying I got mine attitude weakened the unions. Not really. What weakened the unions was their success. What ended up having to happen, was that different states at varying levels, had to mimic the kinds of protections that union workers were getting. And basically make it law, like labor laws and stuff. They had to match what the unions were doing. Otherwise, people wouldn't work. I mean, it was like they had to do things. Otherwise, more and more places would unionize. Um, so that was one of the things that weakened the unions. When you can get the same thing from a private company that you can get from a union, um, it's harder to get people to take a union job. So.
Yeah, well, unions definitely set the labor floor. When you have even 10 or 15% of Americans unionized, then you've got you do have the labor standards set to where the unions are, because if people aren't getting the compensation they want from one job, there's always a union offering a similar job for that price or better. But there is probably a threshold, though I think, like, I'm not knowledgeable enough about all the various countries' sort of labor movements, but we know of plenty of countries where labor participation in unions is quite a bit higher than the United States, and they're not having these problems, and they didn't have this shift.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, in Sweden, for example, they never had a Reagan or a Thatcher to bust the unions up, and so their union movement has always remained pretty strong, and they have a much smaller gap between the richest and poorest as compared to most other countries, and especially as compared to America. Not only that, but they don't have any national minimum wage because they don't need one, because the union movement is strong enough that people have a voice to get a living wage. So they do.
So it's like one of the things that Jack was saying before that I wanted to talk about was, now I forgot it again. It's hard because I have screaming coming from over here.
Well, feel free to interrupt me, Raven, if it just pops into your head. Because I don't know if you all noticed, but I titled tonight's show "The Cancel Hate Jamboree" because Bill Maher said something on his show Friday night that I actually agreed with, which is unusual for me. And Bill Maher. But anyway, he's basically talking about how we have to stop hating each other so much. And that's especially true across social media and whatever. But it's also true just like out there in the world. And I mean, I hate to wax spiritual or whatever, but we need to let each other off the hook and just get on with the important things in our lives. You know what I mean? And I don't know, man, there's so much actual hate like Bill Maher said in his show. I mean, basically any disagreement is just like, now I hate you, go, I never want to speak to you again. And it's like, we can't survive at that temperature. You know what I mean? And there is an awful lot of that out there. Not everyone's like that all the time, but it's like that all the time somewhere,
Well, I mean, you just said it, but Bill Maher probably isn't as cognizant of this, but social media is right there in what you just discussed. A big part of the reason the temperature has raised is because it's very profitable for somebody, and as long as it's profitable for us to be angry at each other this way, and it's also very distracting. I mean, we're not going to break up Facebook or Twitter or these other companies if we're too busy yelling at each other about, really minor culture war issues that are completely invented by, unsympathetic, cynical actors, Paul Joseph Watsons of the world. It's, just, that's very convenient. And as long as there is that kind of distraction, I don't see any reason why Facebook would stop promoting these kind of infightings and hatreds between us.
It's certainly true that as long as the forces that be stoke division, it's going to be pretty hard to arrest that tendency, right? I mean, any one of us can be triggered if someone knows how to, what our buttons are.
Yeah, and if our buttons are continually pressed, particularly by an algorithm that tracks our travel through the internet and sort of notices that, hey, this is something that gives a spike in interest. And if that spike in interest happens to be anger, then maybe it just makes sense to promote some more content for us to be angry at, and to make the threshold of anger, to reduce our ability to have patience by putting distance between those moments of triggering anger.
How many kitten videos do you have to watch to counteract one Metallica video?
I really don't know.
Raven's got the answer. Got to be 5, right? No. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I hate the idea that algorithms spy on everything that I do, and they have this whole psychological makeup of me. But what's even more scary than the fact that that exists is the fact that it might be accurate. You know, I mean, they might really know me, and that's terrifying. I don't even let my friends do that. You know.
Yeah,
Sure,
that is a serious concern, because there's many things that we don't let our friends in. Our friends are not really involved in our, sexual proclivities, particularly unless we're really close, or maybe our private mullings, our writings. Now people are using their phones, notepads as their diaries, and depending on what your ISP is, or your because everything's going into a cloud storage somewhere, everything that you're writing on your phone may be advertisable, may be monetizable to somebody. And the things that we're mulling over, in any context, stuff that we might not share even with our family members, is then well known enough to a somewhat aggressive, counter-aggressive, because it's adversarial to us. It wants us to buy things. It's sort of like having an automated researcher whose entire job is to find out your worst secret so that it can.
Yeah, but at what point, or is there a point, I should say, beyond which it goes from market research to complete destruction of privacy?
Well, I think we crossed that threshold a while ago. I mean, I think at the point where we consigned ourselves to hosting all of our most private thoughts in a cloud somewhere, that is filtered through an unknown number of devices before it gets to a server, theoretically, or we're told everything is encrypted, but we have no real reason to believe that it is. It's simply trust in companies that we wouldn't give them trust in many other contexts. But we have we crossed that threshold at some point, probably, around 2005 or 6, as early as that.
I'd like to talk about Green Machine's point here. They use it to sway your vote, and that's a huge violation. It's definitely an ethical violation, but I don't know, or I seriously don't think there's any laws against it, and maybe there should be, and I'm not even sure how you'd write those laws. I'm not even sure which politicians are uncorrupted enough to make the legislation happen in the first place. So it's a problem that I don't know if it even has an answer, because to me, there's certain, Google is too powerful, way too powerful. Facebook is too powerful for any private company. When a company can make decisions that can literally affect your entire culture, they're too powerful.
Yeah.
And something needs to be done about that. Now, maybe the company needs to be broken up or whatever, or maybe the power inherent in it needs to be emasculated in some way, but I'm not sure how to, I'm not a tech guy. I don't know those answers. You know what I mean?
I've talked in the past about the idea of potentially nationalizing them as utilities, but nationalizing isn't actually going to be enough because, as we've described on the show before, Facebook is synonymous with the internet in many countries because it's the only portal to the internet. Many cell phone plans in rural Africa or Southeast Asia essentially offer a reduced data plan as subsidized by Facebook. And so Facebook just needs all those eyeballs because, of course, the people are the product and their data is the product. So they are happy to subsidize huge portions of the world's internet use in exchange for hundreds of millions of new eyeballs and whatever it can manipulate them into doing. And we in the West have kind of gotten very complacent with this, that, well, we're, savvy internet users who have, had computers on our desks since the late 90s. And so we have the illusion that perhaps we're in a better situation to recognize falsehoods or programming than somebody, in rural Africa. And we're simply not. We're all just as vulnerable to these kind of manipulations because they're happening at very subconscious levels. And that's a worldwide problem. No nation can nationalize Facebook and make this problem go away. It almost has to be an all or nothing or some type of worldwide approach to these types of big tech companies that operate as their own sort of hegemonic forces.
Well, I don't know. What I'm about to say doesn't make any logical sense, I suppose, because as far as I'm concerned, Facebook can just declare victory. They've got all the money in the world they have ever needed to make. They've made more profit than they ever could have hoped for in their wildest dreams. Blah blah blah. They could stop. They could stop advertising. They could stop harvesting our data. They could just offer the service that they offer without harvesting and selling the data, because that's the real issue with Facebook. Is the harvesting and selling of data. That's the main, well, for me anyway, that's the main reason I hate being on Facebook, because I'm feeding the beast, When I saw that documentary, The Great Hack, and they're talking about some of these data mining companies have 6,000 data points on every American. And I didn't know there were 6,000 things to know about me, but I guess there is. And I'm definitely, for someone in my generation, I'm out there. I mean, on my YouTube channel, I've got over 1,000 videos. My opinions are wide open. Do you know what I mean? And I've also got a blog from like 10, 15 years ago, whatever, that I kept for like 6 or 7 years, which again, I just poured my head all over the internet. So I'm out there, so there's probably a lot of data points on me is what I'm trying to say.
In some ways, we can talk about this in the context of, consent. If you were in the nude modeling business and your purpose or what you enjoyed or how you made a living was to, show yourself around the world, that's not a consent to anything beyond people looking at it. And unfortunately, what we think of with privacy isn't necessarily analogous to how we think of our nude bodies. And if we did, maybe we would be a little bit more concerned by it. That there's a very big difference between displaying your thoughts on the internet through a blog and an advertiser then analyzing that blog post and using it to manipulate you to doing something that maybe you, in many cases, certainly wouldn't have done otherwise, even if it's simply an argument with a neighbor. Hi, Sister Danger.
How's it going? I don't have long, but I thought I'd pop in.
Well, as long as you are here, has anybody else seen Dune yet?
And this morning I rewatched the 1984 one as well because I was like, I should just go back and rewatch. And then I watched the trailer for Children of Dune, and I was thought no, that's still a fucking trash fire. So forget about that one. And
So I tried to watch the 1984 Dune a while ago, and I couldn't get past a half an hour of it. It was just putting me to sleep. It was just so dull. It also seemed to be kind of politics heavy. And I don't like my politics any heavier than Star Wars when it comes to movies. So I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not really feeling this. But last night I watched the new one, and I didn't make it through all of it, and I was not impressed.
Okay.
with the new Dune?
Yeah, with the new Dune, yeah.
Oh. Well, that's the first time I've heard anybody say they didn't like it so far. What did you not like?
No, actually, well, I don't know if you know Josh Frost. He also is disappointed. Almost made him cry. He was so disappointed. But I don't know. It just
Let's see it tomorrow.
it was just I mean, it was still kind of politics heavy. It was I like action. There wasn't a whole lot of actual action. There was a lot of storytelling. And my opinion, it was just an excess of storytelling. It was just like, we don't need all of this. We don't need all of this. So
I will say for myself, I have a 3-word review. It's very simple. It was grand. It was epic. It was mesmerizing. I was never bored throughout it. I've read the novel 4 times. I've read the rest of the Dune series a few times less, maybe 2 times all the way through. And then Dune, of course, 4 times. And then the Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson books once each.
I will say that the sets and the landscapes were amazing. Absolutely beautiful. This was it was a beautiful movie. That's not enough for me. I also like, just like the Green Machine. Yeah, the Thopters were fucking awesome.
As a fan of the books, many structural changes were made, but I understand all of them. I think that it was a very, very, very good adaptation of the book. Even if you feel like this version of the movie was too politics heavy, this is actually an adaptation that stripped out most of the wheels within wheels.
1984 was crazy politics heavy. Like I said, I'm a half hour into it and I'm going, oh fuck this. I'm like, no, I couldn't understand what everybody loved about it. I made it through last night. It wasn't agony to watch. I just wished it had more action. Visually, it was absolutely beautiful. It was stunning visually. I don't know a whole lot about Dune, but like you said, there's a series, right? So this is like the first. This movie was from the first book in the series, basically.
This movie is about half of the first book.
Yeah.
Half of the first book. Okay, so the way it ended, it felt like it was half of the story. And the way that I perceived it, like my whole perception of this was that the better half of the story is what comes after. I don't know.
If anything, what this movie is the prologue to the story. We just saw the prologue.
That's interesting. I've obviously not seen it yet. I'm going to go see it tomorrow. I just looked it up and it's here in town, so that's a done deal. That's me. That's my plans for tomorrow. But Dune, I've also read that book 4 times, Jack, and it's the only novel that I've ever read more than once. Generally speaking, I read a novel, I'm like, yeah, and that's cool, and I'm done, and that's it, and I move on because I don't really like novels. If I'm going to spend time reading, I normally tend to read nonfiction stuff. So if I take on a novel, it's got to be pretty good. And Dune, Jesus Christ, every time I read it, once I start, that's it. I'm in, and I'm stuck, and I'm. It's absolutely great, Raven. It's one of the most well-written books I've ever read, and I highly recommend it if you have the time to read a book. I know raising two small kids, that might not be something you have the mental space for, but yeah.
Sister Danger, your review?
Sister Danger, what did you think of the movie?
I thought it was fucking brilliant, and I loved it. So,
were you disappointed with the ending?
No, because I mean, like, it ended, and I was like, what? No! But also, but also, I knew that the ending was, I know the story well enough to know that's not a point to end at, if that makes any sense. So it was. I didn't actually know when I saw the end that there was going to be it's meant to be two of them, but but then that is what my leprechaun told me sitting next to me, was like, oh, this is like just one of two. There's supposed to be another one, and I was like, that's
so. Did
good.
You kind of have that?
This is like, it would not be an end point. So
did you kind of have that feeling like at the end of The Empire Strikes Back, where Chewie and Lando fly off in the Millennium Falcon and they're looking at the galaxy there, and it was like, well, that's not really an end, and then the movie ends. You know?
Well, yes, but I guess it should be that way if there's going to be if there's intended to be more than one of them. So, like, if that had been the actual end, and then ta-da, that's the whole new Dune, then I would have been like, that was really done very poorly. But
so you're thinking they just set it up for the next movie, basically?
Oh, absolutely.
Hope
because
so.
There's like so much more story about the things that we just saw that all come after that.
Right.
And that was what my feeling was when the credits started to roll. I literally was sitting there going, like that's it. That's they can't end there. All the good stuff is about to start, and I don't even know the story, and I know that the good stuff was about to start.
Well, because you've seen the 1984 version, so you know how the.
I only saw a half an hour of the 1984 version.
Oh, you never saw it way back in the day?
I couldn't sit through it. I was just like, fuck this, and I turned it off. So the new one,
like way back when.
No, so I know nothing about Dune except for really what 1984, half an hour of 1984 that made me want to hang myself, and what I watched last night, which really felt like half of a story. It felt like they were setting the stage for some really good stuff, but that's all they were doing is setting the stage and setting the stage and setting the stage, and it was just like, oh my god, motherfuckers, just get with the story, and it felt like they never really did, and then it went off. So, like I said, I'm sitting there looking at the TV going, what the actual fuck?
Now, I don't know. I thought that, like, I was super thrilled with the delivery of so many of the lines and the similarity that they had to the David Lynch version when they were done in the movie. I see you found the mood. Put your hand in the box. What's in the box? Pain, right? Like all of these things, down to the costuming that they had. Like it wasn't exactly the same, but it was enough the same that it gave you kind of this callback feel and
points of comparison.
Yes, and I found that to be just amazing. I thought this made the movie so much better, because one of the things I guess I don't like is when I feel like there's a really good movie out there, and don't get me wrong, like the acting is a little hokey in that 1984 version, but when I do feel like there's really good things out there, one of the things I dislike is when a new director comes along and then wants to like remake everything that was good. It'd be like if somebody was like, I'm going to remake Lord of the Rings, but in my own artistic image, and then it's literally nothing like, but like the way that Arrakis looked, the way that they kept all of the sounds, like the heavy machinery sounds of all of these huge spaceships and the spice miners and all of that, was kind of like this callback to the 1984 version, and it was just fucking brilliant. I really liked it. I liked how the guy played. I was nervous. Like I didn't think the current Paul Atreides. I was like, I I don't know. I feel like I've been burned on Paul Atreides, like new Paul Atreides. Nobody has beaten Kyle MacLachlan, but this guy was great. Like he had the weird kind of somewhere between Kyle MacLachlan and Edward Scissorhands going on. And,
He was from the movie Call Me by Your Name.
but like if you look at how Kyle MacLachlan portrays Paul Atreides and how the new guy, whose name again?
Timothy Chalamet.
Thank you, Timothy. They have a lot of the same like non-reactionary. Like Paul is really kind of, I don't know, stoic is kind of the wrong word. It's like, yes, stoic, but also it's more like a calm stoicism, if that makes any sense, right? It's like he's observing everything as opposed to like being stone-faced, because I'm just, stone-faced. I thought it was interesting how they combined certain characters into single characters. I thought that I thought that House Harkonnen was as awesome, basically as awesome in this version as they were in the 1984 version. And clearly they were like the David Lynch, rubber stamp in the 84 version. Like when you go back and watch that has...
It's cartoonish. It's a big sort of fun, over the top representation.
Hyder is. But yeah. Even when I went back and watched it, I thought that all of the actors in House Harkonnen were I thought the original Duke Leto was hokey as shit. Like, get that guy off my screen. Like, what's even happening with him? And I thought the new Duke Atreides was maybe the only one that I've ever actually liked. I'm like, oh, he actually carried that really rather well, and so
Oscar Isaac's portrayal is quite good.
It was good. It was good. So, there was a piece of the soundtrack that really got my attention because it was extremely similar to a piece of music that was used in Terminator. And
the soundtrack is better than 1984 for sure, because that one is filled with air guitar, Bill and Ted Excellent, like it
was a product of its time. But in this, there was the there was that music very, very similar, and I was just like, holy shit, they're not doing that on this. No, I don't want a Terminator, Judgment Day connection to this. This is so weird. But it was a very similar piece of music.
I was very glad that the sandworms looked less like giant sand penises this time.
Well, we should.
I'm going to go see it tomorrow, and I really, really hope that it doesn't spoil it for me, because this will probably be the only major production of Dune for the next 20 years or so, right? I mean, they're not going to. It's not Spider-Man, for fuck's sake. They're not going to make it every 6 years. They're going. It requires more telling than that kind of a movie. And so I hope I really like it. But here's one thing I would like to throw out there as a possibly controversial opinion. Star Wars is totally derivative of Dune.
That's not controversial in the slightest. Literally everything in Star Wars feels like it's stolen whole cloth from Dune.
When the very first Star Wars movie came out in 1977, I had never read Dune at that time, but one of my best friend's older brothers said to me, "It's a total ripoff of Star Wars of Dune," and I'm like, "Why?" And because of the Sand People and
Arrakis and Tatooine
and all that. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that because, of course, the Darth Vader's children are twins, like in the Children of Dune. So. I mean, it goes, and is Darth Vader therefore Paul Atreides? Yes.
And the one whose path goes to the dark side.
Okay, so I got to feel, like I said, I never read the book. I don't know anything about Dune. In 1984, I couldn't get past the first half hour because of the weight of the politics. Although I do want to say about the 1984 version, what I remember. Again, this was something where the visuals were phenomenal. In the beginning, the big massive machines that were basically part of the backdrop. The giant ships that they came off of, they were just big massive ships. almost like an Art Deco kind of a feel to them. And I thought visually this is fantastic. But yeah, half an hour in, I said, yeah, fuck this.
I'm a huge fan of the visuals of the '84 Dune, but I agree I can't take much of the acting, even though there's amazing people in it like Patrick Stewart and Max von Sydow, and it's
That guy is the one that should have been the Duke Leto.
Yeah.
Do I have the one who was the doctor, right? That checks their suits.
Right.
yes,
In 1984. Yeah, that's the guy
Yeah,
that
Leah
should have played
Kynes.
Duke Leto. I don't know who that other guy was, but get him off my screen. Like, and I was just saying, I was commenting on the love scenes. I'm like, oh, love scene. They're just laying in bed, like Jessica and Duke Leto, and I'm like, she's like, oh, I wish we'd never left Arrakis. And then he's like, oh, and just like puts his arms around her with like for the 1950s, just like snog. I was like, what's happening right now?
So I know nothing about I know nothing about the story about the book. I never read the book. I never watched the whole thing until this, most recent. So okay, there is a prophecy involved here. Is that part of the people who live on Arrakis? They have almost like a religion. There's like this prophecy about this like chosen one.
It's not the people that live on Arrakis. It's the
No.
Bene Gesserit sisterhood.
Yeah, the Missionaria Protectiva.
Okay. And they're convinced that it's Paul, and it is Paul. It is
Paul. Yeah.
So the character that Zendaya plays, is that his twin?
It's not supposed to be Paul, though, is the thing.
It's supposed to be the Kwisatz Haderach, which
Yes.
is Jessica had a male son for Duke Leto instead of a girl, and it was Jessica's daughter's son who was supposed to be the Kwisatz Haderach.
No, I thought that it was supposed to be Jessica's son, and Jessica's son was supposed to be married to a female Harkonnen, and their offspring was supposed to be.
No, because Jessica is already a Harkonnen.
Yeah.
So as far as I was remembering, and maybe I've got it wrong, it's been a long time since I read the appendices part, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that the original plan was that Jessica was supposed to have a daughter, and that daughter was supposed to marry the emperor's son, and then that person was supposed to be the Kwisatz Haderach or whatever.
Like there were just little things as the movie went along, and like everything I do, my attentions were always split. I've got two small kids, and so my attentions are always split and all over the place.
I recommend if you get a chance before it leaves theaters, this is a film.
Well, I can watch it on my TV at home.
Yeah, but this is really the
Oh,
scale
watch
of
it
this
there.
film.
Yeah, I guess.
Demands the theater experience.
But like there were little things as the movie went on. Like there was the one scene where I can't remember the woman's name, but she was helping him put on the environment suit,
Liette.
and she was just like, "This is on perfectly." And then she kind of muttered to herself something like, "It sounded like it was part of a prophecy about how he would take
Familiar ways.
He would take two ways as though he was born to them." And it was just like, oh, I see where they're going.
Right. Well, that is likely lifted directly out of the book. I mean, that is directly out of the book, that bit. One thing I will say about the 1984 version, that if you never saw it in a cinema when contemporaneously to its release, you won't really appreciate the grandeur of the movie, because partly just because of the big screen experience, of course, but also because except for Star Wars, there's precious few movies that actually took us to other worlds. There's lots of movies where aliens come to Earth, but not so many movies where they totally recreate a completely alien environment. And with Dune, I mean, my God, especially if you read the books, it's not just Arrakis. You've got the whole galaxy sort of formed in your head in terms of the political structure of everything that's going on. Also, I can understand why you might not want to have politics mixed in with your science fiction on the one hand. I mean, Dune is one of the most spiritual and politically aware books I've ever read. So I don't think you can really divorce that kind of thing from Dune and be authentic to the story.
I mean, I'm a Star Trek fan. Star Trek is politics heavy. It's social justice heavy. Always was from its beginning. I don't give a shit what edgelords say nowadays. Trek was always politics and social justice. Star Wars is politics heavy, and certain aspects of it are religious heavy. So these are things that I expect in my sci-fi. The 1984 Dune was, oh my god! The beginning of that movie, they beat the fuck out of you with the politics of it, and it made it just so boring that I didn't want to watch past it. I just screw
It's a
it.
matter of execution. It's a matter of, one of the greatest scenes in the 1984 version is this meeting with the navigator, the
Yeah.
guild master, and yet that's not in the proper order where it takes place in the book by any means. It's not even in the first book, and it completely derails the flow and pacing of the original movie.
And that's
so,
why I couldn't get past it.
as much as I love that scene and I think it's really great, it did not belong, at least not at that part. And the 1984, I don't think any Dune fan will say that that's a perfect movie. It's extremely extremely it's a controversial opinion to say that people even like it.
Yes, I agree. Like, I like that movie, but I know that's not how it went over with the vast majority of people. But
Well,
I probably have a liking for it because I like David Lynch stuff a lot, and I like the weird way that he does things. And so flavorly, I'm curious to see how they're going to handle this. I want them to get rid of the weirding modules that they had in the 1984 version. And I want to see how they're going to handle that going forward, because those don't exist in the book.
And let's not spoil anything for Paul. I'll just say I feel like many of the things that we were missing from the 1984 movie were handled fantastically well in this iteration.
Yeah.
Well, that's really great because, like I say, I know they're not going to be any big budget attempts at making this story again. So if this one isn't really, really good, then that's it probably for the rest of my life in terms of trying to make this story.
I will say one thing about this. I don't think that this movie is going to be successful at the box office. And I'm just hoping, I'm crossing fingers or doing whatever other superstitious stuff, that Warner Brothers, who has been trying to make this for a while, appreciates the scale and scope and potential revenue of this franchise.
Yes.
And so we'll be willing to take a loss and continue.
And greenlight them. Yeah.
Well,
definitely.
Jack, you're the only person that I'm acquainted with who's apparently read all 6 of the original series of books. I've read the first 4, and I embarked on number 5, which takes place, I think, 2,000 or 3,000 years after the end of the 4th one, and it just confounded me. My imagination. I mean, when you start doing it's in the year 10,191, and so your imagination is stretching pretty far at the beginning, and then by the time you're God Emperor of Dune, you're a couple thousand years after Paul Atreides was alive, and so you're really, really encompassing an awful lot of stuff in your head, and this is why I marvel at Frank Herbert, who pulled all this stuff out of his imagination. I mean, oh my goodness.
And why I think criticisms of Brian Herbert are a little unfair. It's absolutely true that the Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson books are nowhere near as interesting and depth and layered, but it's also completely unfair. Brian Herbert was very young, and he's working from his father's notes, and he just doesn't have the experience as a reporter, as a researcher, all the other things that Frank Herbert had in order to synthesize these very grand, big, layered, deep ideas that Frank had. But I will say, continue on, at least get to Chapter House Dune, because certainly some of the middle books are headier and a little bit slower. It's, I think, probably pretty universal in the fan base that the first book and Chapter House Dune are the 2 best.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, Chapter House doesn't have a satisfying conclusion because there were more books planned.
I actually own Chapter House Dune.
Yeah,
maybe I should read that.
It's quite good.
That's number 6.
Yeah.
You got Dune, you got Dune Messiah, you've got Children of Dune, God Emperor of Dune, Heretics of Dune, and then Chapter House.
Yeah.
I've always been afraid that, I never read anything past the original Dune, even though I have some of those books because I've bought them on sale at a used bookstore because that's what I do. But I've never read them because I liked Dune so much, and I knew that eventually in the series his son took over writing, and that it was not the same as his writing.
Not in the first 6 books. You
And
don't have
so
to worry
I'm
about
like,
that.
I'm afraid to read the other books because I don't want anything to ruin.
Sister Danger,
Gold medal.
I will aver that the second book, it's only half the size of the rest of the books. The second book's like a regular 200-page novel, whereas the other books are sort of 400 pages or more. And Dune Messiah is there's so many new things introduced into it that it might be a little hard to, and it's not as great as the rest of them. In my opinion, it's the weakest link in the chain, but it's still a really good story, and it's still told really, really, really well. And he uses similar devices, but you know how in the story of Dune, there's all the interludes from Princess Irulan and the books that make up the scripture for the future religion and all that kind of crap. Well, I mean, there's similar devices but different, and that continues right through all the books that I've read anyway. So yeah,
if the books are covering spans of time the way that you're talking about, and you were saying about how having to stretch your imagination, and you've gotten to the point where it's hard to keep doing that. When you're writing about things that are taking place like galaxy wide, yeah, you're gonna end up covering large spans of time. I don't think there's any way around that. I mean, unless you comic book it the way Star Wars did, where it was like a comic book, it was like, meanwhile, if you're not going to cut out all the writing to do that, yeah, it's going to be long books. It's going to be long periods of time in between. There's no other way to cover that kind of physical space. Because, I mean, things don't happen like that. So, in a realistic writing about a fictional, in fictional worlds over long distances, that's going to take years and years worth of storytelling.
I want to go back and reread, actually, in the scene where Duke Atreides crushes the tooth to breathe out the poison, because when I watched that on screen, I remember thinking, this isn't how it happens in the book. I feel relatively sure that in the book he did the thing and it was supposed to kill Baron Harkonnen and it missed its target, and that the doctor was there to realize that his whole plan had failed. Like he observed it somehow. I could be misremembered because it's been a long ass time, but I'm like, wasn't that the whole gut wrenching thing of that? Like all of this lead up, and then at the very end, the whole plan goes off and it misses its target, and the doctor is.
I think you're thinking of the 1984 movie, which does that. I'm pretty sure that.
No, he gets killed first in the 1984 movie, just like here. They kill him, and then except for that, it gets Piter, and but then the Baron lives.
Yeah, I'll have to reread that too because I'm not remembering it that way.
I guess I just feel like I remember. I don't know. I remember and when I read the book, thinking, "Oh my God, this is horribly tragic because this guy did all of these things, and then at the very end, it didn't even work, like at the last second, it all failed, and it was terrible and horrible, and I was like, this is, I don't know." But
Hi Vegas. Hey, you blocked me.
I need to get going. I have a whole lot of other work to do, but before I do, I just want to encourage anybody in the audience who's watching, if you have a chance, if you want to brave COVID, wear a mask, go out to the theater. This is a movie, Dune is a movie that absolutely demands to be seen on the largest screen with the best sound system available. It's that kind of movie. Those don't come along very often. And it's I felt it was a fantastic experience. It was powerful enough. I'm sort of still processing it. And
we want to go back and see it. Oh,
Yes.
so okay, so you went and saw it on IMAX. So we were talking because, like, is there 3D and IMAX? Because when we looked up the IMAX, we decided we didn't want to like go that far, but we now want to go back and kind of see it big. But it said something about like it has lasers, and so when it came to the point in the show, I think where maybe it was the Harkonnens or something that were attacking Arrakis, I was like, lasers! Because that's when all these lasers started being on the screen. and I was like, that made me think of like, is that what they mean? Like, are these lasers like coming at you like through the, and does the
I
spice
didn't see it
melange
in
like
3D.
float? But is it like in 3D? Like, is the spice like literally around you, sort of like when in
I could
Avatar?
imagine so.
Because
Yeah.
that would be awesome.
Particularly in the still tent scene. But yeah, I didn't see it in 3D. I just saw it on big 4-story tall giant IMAX and, with a sound system that vibrated my rib cage, and I enjoyed it immensely, and I was captivated for the entire time, and completely left the world and entered the world of Dune.
Yeah, I basically fell into it immediately and then was happy to stay there. So
as dark and dour a universe as it can be, it was also very mesmerizing.
Well, I'm looking forward to it then.
Dark and dour, just like the real world. All right.
Have a good night, everyone. Bye now.
So Vegas, you got rid of Facebook. I see. Okay. Alrighty. If that makes sense.
I toy with the idea of getting rid of Facebook frequently because I just don't like contributing to what I think is a problem. But at the same time, it's the only place where all my people are at the same intersection. So, it's a hard one.
I feel like I'm missing some part of conversation that occurred. Were you guys talking about this before I got here?
Not really.
If a sneeze.
Now, we did talk a little bit about Facebook in a different context, but not in this context so much now. But yeah, I don't really use Facebook the way other people use it, so I don't really feel like my contribution is that problematic. But at the same time, the fact that I'm on it at all is, a part of the problem. So.
See, part of the problem is I've got friends all over the world, and that if it weren't for Facebook, I would have a very difficult time having contact with any of them. It's not like I could just pick up a phone, call them, because in those kinds of distances, that would cost money over the phone. But internet, I can just pop on.
Even if it was free, like on Skype, I mean, people just don't normally make that kind of time, whereas you can just tap out a couple of sentences on Facebook and feel like you've dealt with someone for a whole day. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's the thing. I don't know.
So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There needs to be a new social media platform that isn't evil. I would love that.
What if there was a social media platform where you could post your thoughts or whatever and meet your friends and do all the sort of functional things as Facebook, but there was no advertisements and there was no data tracking whatsoever?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I wish there was.
So if such a site existed, would you be prepared to pay for your admission ticket? Would you say, okay, that's worth like $10 a year or whatever to have this internet address where people can come and find me?
None of y'all worth $10 a year. Yeah, I don't know. Email doesn't work. I mean, obviously email works, but it doesn't. It's not the same thing.
I honestly hardly ever look at my emails, and I only really sort of just check them and scan them, and I don't really, So I actually resent having to look at my emails. I don't like it.
Vegas, actually, you can actually control who sees what you do when and where on Facebook, though. You do have those kinds of privacy controls.
Yeah, there's filters for that kind of thing if that's what you're up for. I know certain people that I don't actually understand, because I know certain people who will accept someone as a friend on their friends list and then filter them so they basically can see nothing but their homepage anyway. And that's like,
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that have done that to me.
It's an interesting thing to do. I mean, why would you do that? I mean, just don't friend someone. Just decline the request or unfriend if you're already friends.
I have 2 accounts, as you guys know. One is friends and family, and there's a lot of crossover from my YouTube world and life onto that Facebook page. But on my other account, I'm up to about 2,500 people. I only know about 250 of them. Everybody else is just, most of them, about 2,000, a little over 2,000 are recent within the last few weeks.
So joyriders.
Yeah, I mean, well, they saw a pretty girl. Yeah.
So they're voyeurs. They want in. They want a window.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'll ask people, what the hell, who are you? Where are you from? And they're like, oh, you were in my recommendeds, or you were a friend of a friend, or all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they just see me in the suggested friends or whatever. And they're like, oh, a pretty girl, send a friend request. And some of them, when they find out I'm trans, they get like really nasty. And I'm just like, you came after me. You came looking. You knocked on my door. I don't know you. I've never requested to be anybody's friend on Facebook. Never. I've never sent a friend request. I've never done it. There's not a single person on Facebook that I'm friends with that I sent a friend request to. Not one. And between both of my accounts, I've got about 3,000 friends, and they all came to me.
Wow, I feel like I should bow down prostrate.
You should. You should. That's what I'm saying.
Mr. Danger, do you harvest strangers on the internet, or do you avoid that kind of experience?
Well, Facebook will cut you off at 5,000 friends. So on a regular friend Facebook page that's not a fan page. So I will not accept if I get a friend request and I have 0 friends in common with that person, I just delete them because I think it's a fake account. If I have a few friends in common, I will actually go and check out where that request is coming from, because sometimes it's from a smaller circle that I'm peripheral in, but also sometimes it's actually because an account has been duplicated. And so somebody is attempting to appear as someone else and then go through their friends list. So I actually will go check it out. And if I feel like maybe this is real, I will send them a message and I just say, do I know you? And if they respond and they say, no, but I go delete. And then that's the end of it. I guess I just don't mess around with it, and I don't see any reason to just friend randos, like total randos.
I do a certain amount of vetting. Like I will look at the mutual friends. I will go through some of their posts to see if they're crazy, and I'll go and I'll check out their likes, and also what country they're from also.
Yeah, I'll do the same thing, but mostly I do that as a way to make sure that I'm dealing with an actual person and not some kind of a spammy bot, weird Nigerian prince that wants to, marry.
I do that on Twitter.
Queen of Saudi. So
yeah, I do that on Twitter. If I'm tempted to retweet something, I check and make sure that it's a person and not a bot, because I don't want to retweet a bot.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that that they're not from Nigeria, Morocco, Tunisia. Actually, in most other countries, I would just not accept the friend request. I had made the mistake of accepting people from the Middle East, and I was getting video calls day and night, 24 hours a day, from Middle Eastern men who wanted to make me their desert princess.
Yeah. All right.
No, yeah, no.
You go, Queen Jawa. Like, I just don't. What's weird about it is sometimes I get these requests, and I just think to myself, it who even would believe that this is a real profile? Because it's like you'll see the dude's picture, and it literally, if you just right click and do Google search this image, it comes up in images as like some, like here.
Well, sometimes they'll send you a message. Like if the first thing they ask is where you're from, that's a red flag.
Well, it says right
that's
now.
Not how I handle. Yeah, that's not how I handle conversations. It's like, first off, check my about section if you want to know where I'm from. Why are you asking me? All the info you want is right there. That's number one. And number two, if they say okay after everything you say, that's not a real person.
Yeah. No, I basically will only friend people that I don't actually know, because I do that every now and again, but it's only because when I've said, like, do I know you? They'll say, we are in this group together, or,
Right.
I know you via this person or whatever. And then I'm like, okay. So then I'll give them like the tentative, and as long as they kind of stay in their corner for a minute and they're not, because if I don't know, I guess I'm pretty good at sussing out what's real and what's not, because I don't get a lot of, I don't seem to make the wrong call very often. So.
Well, that's good. That's good. Now, I had somebody hit me up a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember the name on the account, but it was somebody it was an actor. It was a real person. It was an actor. Was the name on the account, and the picture was all pictures of this actor. And all of the posts matched who this person was supposed to be. So it looked very legit. But he would say things like, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from New Jersey," and the response was, "Okay," and then ask another question. And I was like,
"Yeah, that's not real.
That's just not normal conversation.
Right.
People don't communicate this way." So I would start asking them questions, and I would looked at his profile, and it said that he lived in, I don't know, somewhere in Southern California, and that he was where he grew up. I would look that up on on Wiki. Okay, I have some basics about this guy, and they're like, "Where are you from?" And he was like, "I'm from Virginia." "Your profile says you live in Southern California." And he said, "Okay, that's where I stay." So what do you mean that's where you stay? "Okay, that's where I live." Okay, what's with the okay?
Like people just trying to test their AI responders or something.
Yeah, and that's what it seems like. It seems like it's an AI, And then I just started cursing at him. I said, "What you're doing is really fucking disgusting, you fucking asshole." Right? And
okay.
Okay. Why are you angry with me? And okay, blocked. Okay.
Vegas, I don't even know what to think about that suggestion. That just sounds like, hey, if you would like to have an afternoon of flogging yourself till bloodletting, go ahead and do this. Like, what? No. Bad idea. Terrible.
I had somebody on Facebook earlier today asking me about what the big deal was with Dave Chappelle. Said they were an older white guy and doesn't really understand what the big deal is. So I explained it, and he said, "Okay, I get it. I understand. And you're right. He was wrong." Thank you. Next.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I think you're in for a lot of that kind of conversation. You might want to write it down, print it out, and keep it in your pocket so you can just hand it to people when they bring it up. What do you think? Because of you being trans, they'll say, "What do you think about the Dave Chappelle thing?" Because they really want to find out, where
a perspective that's not theirs, right? Well, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing.
If people are asking you because they're genuinely like, "Okay, so I thought it was funny. What's the problem?" And then you educate them as to why it's problematic. That can't be a bad thing. So you might as well just have a few in your wallet, is what I'm saying. Ready to go.
Yeah. I was actually pleased that I don't know how serious or how sincere he was, but he did seem sincere. That he really didn't understand, why it was such an issue and why everybody was all upset about it. He thought it was funny. And when I explained it, he was like, okay, I get it.
Funny is not necessarily germane to the point.
Right.
That's my opinion. I laughed right throughout the whole thing. I laughed at the jokes that I knew were problematic. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm a human being. And you say something that's like instantly funny, I'll laugh and then consider my laugh. I don't go, should I laugh at this joke?
Like I laughed at the joke where he talked about, he was looking at the crowd to see if there's any trans people. He was looking for Adam's apples and knuckles. I laughed at that. Right. It's one of those things where it's funny in the moment because it's just like, oh shit, but when you think about what he says, like, wait, that's not funny. I mean, that's an insult. I mean, he starts off this segment with an insult.
A lot of comedy is insults. A lot of comedy has always been insults, right? I mean, like, you can't imagine George Carlin's last 15 years of comic stand-ups without insults and without insulting whole groups of people, whether they're obese people or whatever. And I don't like the whole idea of sacred cows. On the other hand, I do think very strongly that a lot of his jokes to me were like in what I would call at the very best questionable taste. But there's like 3 or 4 in particular that I'm just like, dude, you're just like opening the door for all this bigotry with that one. You know what I mean? Like,
well, there's a difference. There's a difference between like insults and then just being mean-spirited. Like, there's a difference between being insulting and funny, and right. Imagine Don Rickles trying to get started today, right? There's a difference between that and just being an asshole. Slapstick is funny, but kicking somebody in the nuts repeatedly just for the thrill of it, it's not really funny.
No.
So.
Yeah, and I went back on a couple of nights ago. I went back and watched Sticks and Stones to see, and it was kind of made it obvious to me that the more recent one, The Closer, I mean, he says at the end of it that he's not going to do any more jokes about this subject whatsoever, and I hope that's true. But I think that's why The Closer was full of it. I mean, basically, The Closer was a bunch of trans jokes with a few segue links in between. Whereas the other show, there's a couple of trans jokes in it. Do you know what I mean? And it's not like basically The Closer though was like the theme of the whole show was people hate me about this and I'm going to talk about it. And Raven, last weekend you mentioned that you were talking to someone who was saying that to you that it's not about the trans struggle, it's about the black struggle and whatever. And so I watched The Closer again with that in mind to see if I could see it that way. And I think I kind of understand what they're trying to say, but I still don't necessarily think that that's a valid argument. You know
right.
what I mean?
And I agree it's not, because what he basically did, and it was Joe who really pointed this out, was he basically shit all over a marginalized group in defense of another marginalized group. He used the trans community to beat on, to make a point about his own community. And that's just bad form. That's just, that makes no goddamn sense. Even if the point he wants to make is a valid point worth making. This is not the way you go about it. And like Vegas says, a lot of the trans jokes that he cracked were pretty funny. I mean, he had the whole thing about, trans men, in the men's room, sitting at the urinal. That was funny. That was a joke. That was a trans joke that was not punching down. He didn't hit anybody with that joke. It was a joke. Anybody with a sense of humor would legitimately laugh at that joke. It was a good joke. But he did go into a monologue, and the monologue wasn't jokes. It was a monologue. He spoke his mind. And that was full of bigotry. That was full of hate. So.
Sister Danger, have you anything to add?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. You looked like you were biting your tongue, and I'm thinking to myself, I want to give her a chance to talk. That's all. So I thought I'd do so.
I mean, I feel like I had the conversation the last time.
Yeah, fair enough.
Last week. Last week. And she doesn't agree. She doesn't agree, and she's fine.
I didn't say that.
Well, I know what you mean, though. Yeah, that we did exhaust this topic for 2 hours 2 weekends ago. So
yes. I also have to go in like 1 minute, and I was trying to figure out whose music I can hear and if I knew the song that was playing in the background. That's what I was actually trying to do when you thought I was biting my tongue.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. Fair enough. Well, just as an aside, Sister Danger, I recently acquired a turntable, and I did this really nice hi-fi setup when I haven't had proper high fidelity in my home for when I thought about it, since the fucking 80s. And so now I've got like a really nice stereo and a turntable and everything. And it's like you've never heard music before when you listen to it in really good high fidelity. You know what I mean? I mean, literally like, wow, I've had this album for 30 years and I've never heard it before kind of thing, because the sound is so good. Huh. And are you a sound geek?
I guess it depends on what you mean by that. Like,
well, I mean, do you like? Okay, just
I like
in terms of listening to music.
ASMR.
Do you ever and this goes for both y'all? Do you ever just like put on an album and do fuck all, or is music always something that's going on in the background?
No, I actually can only listen to certain kinds of music while I work, because if I try to listen to other types of music, my brain tries to listen to the music and I can't do the work. So I can only listen to certain types of music, or music that I'm exceedingly familiar with. That way my brain doesn't try to listen to it and pay attention to it. So I like music and sounds and things a lot, but I don't know if that means I'm a sound geek or not, because I don't think I'm very technically savvy, but I definitely, I mean, like, I couldn't talk to you about equipment and hookups and things, but I could definitely talk to you for a while about, I don't know, the various levels in classical music and things that I hear in parts of a symphony and opera, and then just your standard, your regular old music that's out there. Like, I could talk about that sound wise for a long time. I listen to a lot of ASMR stuff, a lot of meditation videos, and transcendental type sounding things while I'm working.
You listen to ASMR tapes?
Oh yeah, all the time. Like,
wow.
I will put those on and just listen. Like, those I can have going in the background while I work, and they actually help me work, because they help me not focus on anything that's beyond what's right.
I totally understand that dynamic, but I don't know if ASMR tapes would work on that for me. And to be fair, Sister Danger, you're the first person I've actually acquainted with who's admitted to me that they listen to those things like voluntarily.
Oh, I love them. I also like sound effects, actually. So in movies and shows, I'm always very fascinated by the sound effects and how certain sound effects are made. I think that that's a very fascinating art, actually. Like, how do you make the sound of people walking through the mud and squelching? How do you make the sound of that metal door being peeled open, right? Like, that is a kind of a cool art form, I think. So I don't know. So I guess yeah, but also no, because I don't know. I mean, I actually own 2 turntables.
Thanks for clearing that up.
And yes, what's wrong with ASMR videos? Why would somebody not admit to that? Like, there is some cool stuff out there,
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's good country music songs as well, but I won't listen to any of them. So
I mean, I'm not even a country person, but I could. Come on, who doesn't like Johnny Cash?
Everyone hits me with Johnny Cash.
You're fired.
I'm sorry, Johnny Cash doesn't even fucking count. All right, to say you have one cool person that's unassailable in your whole genre should be embarrassing for anyone's genre. And everyone always hits me with Johnny Cash. It's not fair, because you can't not like Johnny Cash.
It's not hair. Oh, I didn't realize that I was breaking an unwritten rule.
You're totally breaking the rules, girl. That's what's going on.
What are you even
Johnny
talking
Cash
about?
wasn't really. I mean, he kind of crossed boundaries, though. That's why he doesn't count. That's why you can't count him.
No,
I mean,
yeah,
granted,
fair
you
enough,
can get
but
way
no,
more
he was
country than
totally a
Johnny
country
Cash.
guy. He was on Hee Haw every weekend when I was a kid. He's definitely a country guy. So,
Oh man, my grandparents used to watch Hee Haw. Oh, talk about.
I used to watch Hee Haw.
We're not ones to go round spreading rumors. Like, wow.
When I was a kid, Hee Haw was on in my house all the time.
Man, these days I think that show would. As a kid, I didn't realize how much religiosity was in that show. Nowadays, I'd just be like, stab my own eyes out.
And what else? The Osmonds. That was another one that was on all the time.
We always wanted to watch Knight Rider. My grandparents made us watch Hee Haw.
Hee Haw, the Osmonds, Sonny and Cher.
the Carol Burnett show. You want
Carol Burnett show.
Yeah.
All those variety shows and music shows, all that stuff. My parents had that stuff on all the time when I was a kid.
Sure.
Constantly.
I watched Carol Burnett every week for I can't even know how many years, but a lot of years.
Carol Burnett's awesome, though.
Yeah, she was great, and all her actors on that show were great as well. I thought it was a great. I mean, the whole variety show format, I reckon, is super ripe for a comeback, right? Because I know they have similar things like pop idol type stuff where you can do what's the one they have in the UK? I can't even think of the name of it right now, but you don't have to sing. You could do anything. You could juggle, you could do card tricks, you could tap dance or whatever,
Isn't it kind of what what's the one with that the famous the famous host of the Simon, is that his name? The dark-haired guy, and you have the panel of judges and people get on the stage and American Idol, is that what it's called?
Yeah, American Idol.
I mean, isn't that kind of what those are a little bit?
Well, I mean, those are like regular people. With the variety shows, you had sketches, you had guest star appearances, you had maybe some song and dance or whatever. You never knew what to expect. That's kind of the whole point of a variety show.
Well, I mean, there's SNL.
I guess I just feel like maybe the whole face of television is changing so much that I don't know if that's because now it isn't just TV. Now it's it's Netflix and it's Hulu and it's Amazon and it's all of your virtual TV that they you have companies doing stuff on Facebook and everywhere else. Instagram, TikTok, like
internet killed the television star.
Yeah, it really did. So yeah, I guess Simon Cowell. I don't know.
So a couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure if you were here at the time, Sister Danger, but we talked about All in the Family. And I hadn't really watched any reruns of All in the Family since the 80s. And I noticed it was on, I guess it must have been, I was cruising Amazon. I saw it on there. So, let's watch All in the Family. So I watched the first 2 episodes of All in the Family, which I literally haven't seen for the better part of 40 years, right? Have y'all watched that stuff? Because you couldn't make that TV show today. You could not.
I've never seen it. I don't think I've ever seen it.
You should watch it. Actually, I always recommend to everyone that they watch All in the Family. All in the Family was brilliant. One of the best offerings ever on television.
It probably is, in my opinion, the best offering because they really did tackle serious issues. Everything from racism, homophobia to rape and everything else. Yeah,
they fearlessly approach these things straight out. They didn't hide. It was All in the Family was fantastic television. I mean, obviously,
in the first episode, me and my girl were literally gasping. We're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they went there!" And this was 1971 or 2 when the first series came out. So
something like that, yep. I mean, but yeah. I mean, there was a whole oh my god, MASH. MASH was another one. MASH was some of the best television ever made.
Yeah, MASH had a lot of socially conscious themes in it, but a lot of it was just pure entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, All in the Family was always issues oriented, pretty much every week, you know. And I've only watched the first 2 episodes, and I'm already like, fuck, I know this goes on for like 5 seasons. Where's this going to go? If this is where it starts, you know?
Oh, it's good. It's good.
It's as if it's new to me because I haven't seen it for so long.
Right? MASH is great, right? See, there you go.
I think I've seen every episode of MASH.
Wow.
Like, yeah, I think I've watched MASH from beginning to end, maybe even more than once, although it was a long time ago, because both my dad and my grandparents, one set of grandparents, used to watch MASH. So a lot of that, and that show was very good, brilliant. I agree. But I guess that I don't feel like, I don't know. I guess I don't feel like TV and cinema and all of that it's actually my thing. I don't know. I mean,
No, you mentioned that before, that movies aren't really your thing.
yeah, well, movies are definitely more my thing than TV because I can't stand. So, I mean, here's what happened. Like, it's really simple. I grew up watching TV. I think basically like most more normal people. But when I moved out of the house when I was 18 and I moved to Seattle, I didn't have room to bring my TV with me because I was young and poor and was going to be in a tiny room. So I just threw my TV out. And then after that, I filled that space with books, and then I just never got another TV literally until this day. And I still don't have a TV, but as time went on, I experienced basically the phenomena of TV becoming more and more annoying to me and very loud and assaulting on my senses, especially commercials. And it's also really hard for me to concentrate. So if I'm at a party, for example, and there's a television show, I have difficulty with that being there if that's a thing that people have on to watch. Like, either I must be watching that show or I must be engaged in the party. I can't. It's basically like two things doing the same thing, trying to use the same part of my brain, right? So, you know, I can't navigate that very well, and it's very aggravating. Anyway, over time, what that's resulted in is this divergence of me and media, right? And so things that I used to watch a long time ago, it's like, yeah, I saw that, but it was 25 years ago when I saw it the one time. I don't really remember it that much, and it wasn't so incredibly impacting on my mind that it's like, okay, I saw it was cool, and then I just like let it go, and as time has gone on, that gap becomes wider and wider, and I don't.
So, one thing that I'm excited about in television world is there's going to be a series, I guess a limited series, by Mel Brooks, History of the World Part 2. If you remember, there was a movie in like 1980, 81 that was History of the World Part 1, which was, Mel Brooks. I mean, it was classic Mel Brooks, but I mean, it was phenomenal. It was some fantastic stuff. And now here we are 40 years later. They're finally getting to Part 2, and it'll be a series. So I'm excited about that.
That's Mel Brooks too, right?
Oh.
Blazing Saddles.
So we better get to see Jews in space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jews in space.
I mean, it'd be hard to pin me down on my favorite Mel Brooks movie because I like Spaceballs a lot. But I personally think The Producers has got to be my favorite one to watch. I could probably watch it twice in a row. You know what I mean?
That's a good movie.
Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder's chemistry together is just flawless.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I kind of feel like that we're at a point in time where this is actually a good thing. I mean, I think we could use some Mel Brooks. I think it would be, this icon from the past. I just think it would be a breath of fresh air. And especially finally delivering on something that they never promised to deliver on, which was a Part 2. So
I think
Yeah.
also comedy is not a thing I watch all that much, to be perfectly honest. Like I do not usually like to watch not comedy sketches like with a comedian. That's different. But comedy movies or I don't even know how you would describe them. Definitely not my style of show or movies though. And I kind of have it's kind of up there with sports ball movies. I sort of have to have my arm twisted a little bit to watch them. You know, anything that's like National Lampoons and stuff. I don't know. Uh, I don't know. I guess that just my brain goes more towards, you know, I really like horror. I really like anything that's a psychological thriller. You know, anything that is just. I don't like tragedies. You know, and shit that's fucking makes you want to bawl your eyes out at the end and has a terrible ending. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I live in real life. Why do I need to also cry in the theater? You know, like I don't want to watch that. So, like,
Yeah,
but
for me,
I like the things that twist my brain though. So
for me, it's comedy. I like the well, at least the Marvel superhero stuff. You know, some of the DC. Back in the 80s and 90s, and then I very much like the techno thriller. You know, like the Jim Clancy, Tom Clancy kind of stuff. You know, Hunt for Red October and that kind of thing. And sci-fi in general.
Did any of y'all see the movie that came out end of 2019, beginning of 2020 by Guy Ritchie called The Gentleman, starring Matthew McConaughey and Hugh Grant and a few others?
wasn't he married to Madonna?
He was.
Seriously, you got to watch this movie because it has great acting, a great script, multiple plot twists. And one of the things I like about it in terms of plot twists is it starts off with a false spoiler. So it starts off with a scene from the end of the movie, and you think you're seeing something that when you get to that point in the actual story, it turns out not to be that. So it's pretty cool. It's really well written, and honestly, Hugh Grant's acting in that movie, he should have got a freaking Oscar for that. You know, and that's I'm talking about Hugh Grant. Okay, he's not exactly Laurence Olivier, but he should have got an Oscar.
Hugh Grant's a foppish British actor.
Hugh Grant's the guy from Four Weddings and a Funeral. He's also in like Notting Hill and a whole bunch of rom-coms and shit like that.
More things that I don't watch.
Right. Yeah, you're not a movie gal, so that's fine. Yeah.
I mean, I am just a really.
Yeah, just like something that makes the old tumblers tumble.
Yeah, like if it's not doing that, I have a hard time. I do watch political things, so I liked HBO's Rome, for example. I Claudius from the 1970s is brilliant. Just heavy politics, that kind of stuff. I find quite fascinating, and that will. I liked HBO's Deadwood, but maybe that's because it's because basically Al Swearingen is amazing. So many of the actors are amazing, and I've been to Deadwood more than once, so it's kind of cool.
So how do you find people this evening?
About to get off the show. I have a game to go run.
What are you running?
We do a little LARPy thing on Discord. So
cool.
Every third Saturday, and that would be today.
Aha. And then you're not back next weekend because of Halloween, right?
That is correct. We are having a Cyber Samhain on my channel, and then on Sunday we are doing a live catered dumb supper. So busy weekend next weekend. So
have fun. I'll be getting older next weekend.
Yeah. What's your costume going to be, Sister Danger?
Hold on. Do you have the ability to not get older all of the days in between your two birthdays?
We don't
the whole year on the one day. Like, I'm not getting older right now.
I save it up all for that day.
You save it up all for that day. I'm going to be a Ghostbuster because we are going ghost hunting. The hotel that we're having our dumb supper in on Halloween is supposedly haunted. So we have a whole bunch of ghost hunting equipment. And after we do our dumb supper feast and the LARPy goodness and whatnot, some of us are staying overnight in the hotel, and we are going to go wander the halls looking for ghosts. So
You are the type of person who probably has a friend with a hearse. That's a compliment, by the way.
Well, I mean, even if you didn't mean it as one, that's because my friends are fucking awesome. And I don't be friends with boring people. Hearses are amazing.
I had a friend with a hearse.
Yes, I literally had a friend post today. I need a new car. I currently have a smart car, but I want to get a new one. Look at this hearse that I'm looking at, and it's the same model as the Ghostbusters hearse was.
Oh, cool.
Except for it's black. It looks like an actual hearse. It doesn't look like the Ghostbusters car. But I was like, and then here you are. This was literally in my Facebook feed yesterday, and now I'm like, yep, I sure do. So
that's funny.
Those are my friends. I have knights and weird vampire people and mermaids and all the awesome. Circus freaks. They're all my friends. Goblins, fairies. You should see my phone list. It's great. It's anything but boring, and that's how I like it.
That's cool.
Well, it sounds like fun.
I mean, are you trying to say you want to go for a ride in the hearse?
Well, I've never been in a hearse. Neither have I ever been in a limousine. So whichever comes first, I'm happy with.
Oh, these days you can get a limousine for pretty cheap. It's those big SUV limousines that cost all the money now, right? Like, 50 feet long, and who even needs that? I don't understand. I don't know. So
yeah, and you need like 3 people to drive it.
I don't really understand the whole limousine thing. I always figured if I wanted to be in a car, something that was that fancy, I would want to be in an actual party bus where you can stand up and like have a stripper pole or something, right? Like moving around, doing stuff. You don't have to just be still. I mean, yay, it has a mini bar or whatever, but you can't walk around and do stuff. If you're going to go that far, go all the way.
Now I want to party with Sister Danger.
It's actually like, it's one of my goals. So as you guys know, like we've been, working towards buying our own property where we can run year round, themed LARPy events, right? That are, the high-end kind of parlor LARP sorts of things. But one of the things that I want to do for my own personal edification is once a year, probably kind of January or maybe as a New Year ball, I want to have the odd ball. And the only people that are invited are all of the weird people. No mundane people. If you're going to come to this party, you had better be like dressed up in some kind of whatever it is that you do. If you're a mermaid, I want you to roll up on your clamshell. Okay, that's what I want to see. like I just no normal people, and I just want to have like the craziest like Wizard of Oz, a gathering of people that is just like a celebration of everything that is strange in the world. None of the boring, like, we're just gonna drink champagne from our champagne flutes, clink clink, none of that. Like, roll out the absinthe fairy, yay, right? Like, she like comes out inside of a full size like decanter that had like, what do you call those things with the spigots, the lemonade things, and there's like a girl inside of it swimming around dressed in green. It's lit black lights and cool and glowing, and yeah, it's a dry ice going everywhere.
Like, I've done that.
Yeah. That's what I want, right? Like, that'll be excellent. So yep.
Raven.
The oddball. That's it. I'll know I've made it when I can do that.
That's cool. Good to have goals.
Because you got to have goals. I hear Dennis Leary in my head when I say that.
Well, I mean, my goal is to own a game company.
What kind of games?
Mostly Well, it's like probably a mixture of strategy or role playing.
Like RPGs or just board games?
Both.
Oh, okay. So where are you on that goal?
Actually, I am in the process of moving some money around to make that a reality.
Oh wow.
So if all goes well, I won't be I won't be the only person, but I'll have like somewhere between 20-25% stake in the company. So hopefully, hopefully in 3-4 months, if things go well, it'll be done. So like I said, I'm basically moving money around so I'm ready to jump when because being negotiated right now. So once if it goes through, I'll be ready to throw my
So
lot in.
you're looking at investing then, not actually like doing the game design /
No, but
writing yourself.
that too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Have you done game writing in the past or?
Yeah. Well, I've worked actually for that particular company. I've actually helped them with development in the past. I've got credits in games.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know you had credits in games.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a game. This company makes several games, but one of the games they make, I'm one of the top players in the world, and so for a long time I was like, they call it a staff member, basically unpaid staff. You get paid in product, but that's fine.
I gotta go.
Take care.
All right, Sister Danger. Thanks for hanging out.
Yep. Bye, guys.
So hopefully, if things go the way we think there, because basically, the owner, he just turned 70. His health isn't the greatest. He's just going to retire.
So you're looking for investors, did you say, Joe?
I'm part of a group of investors. We're just about there. I think we're a little short on the funding, but we're basically. I think we're trying to find like at least one more person, and then that'll get us to full funding. Because the thing is, it's not going to be just the cost of what we have to pay the guy for the IP, but because he was always a little bit of a Luddite, and over the last 10 years, as his health has not been greatest, he hasn't really been pushing the company and modernizing things and keeping up with trends. So we figure it's going to take a decent stake of money to one, like the website needs to be redone. They need a new forum. They need to update. So basically, they need to update a bunch of the products to kind of appeal, because they got a license for the stuff, and it's a very valuable license for that they have. But the game, basically people are aging out. It's like most of the players are like 40 and up, and so we need some new games to basically appeal to younger crowd. Now, I think the good part is that role playing, like board games have been making a comeback over the last 5 years, and COVID has kind of accelerated that. So, and basically, if you look at a company like the company that makes Warhammer 40K, and they're doing miniatures based board games, and they're making bank. So you can definitely get a younger audience, but you have to kind of make the kind of games that they want to play.
I feel kind of lucky that I never really got into gaming, and the reason I say I feel lucky about that is because I raised 2 kids, and I know them pretty well. And if I got into gaming, they would have known the back of my head, right? That's all they would have known. I would have just been like, "I'll be right there, kids." Meanwhile, dinner's burning.
Well, it depends. I mean, like my friend Tony, he when his son grew up, he gamed with his son, gamed with him. So his son's a gamer now too. So that was actually something that brought them together.
Well, that's kind of cool. Yeah. I don't know. It's like we talked about golf the other day. I mean, there's certain things that I know I would never be great at, and therefore the frustration level outweighs the fun factor. And I think most gaming falls into that category for me. And I know I'm showing my age, but I mean, give me Pac-Man or Asteroids any day, and I'll be at that shit for hours.
Yeah.
Any sort of RPG games or whatever, not really my scene,
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I like RPG games a lot, because it's nice because you can be whatever, right? You can be the good guy, you can be the bad guy, something in between. And there's basically so many different settings and genres you can be. medieval. You can be, like a D&D type thing, or a realistic medieval. You can do sci-fi. You can do detective. You can do gangster. Cthulhu. Any of that. Roman.
So when I was a kid, Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and all that was really big. But I remember a game, Gauntlet. Gauntlet, that was fantastic. Thank you. I was going to ask.
Let's mention that now.
So, okay. So, that link goes to my GoFundMe to help with expenses with transition. One of the most immediate expenses that I'm facing, actually a good friend helped me out with some of that a couple of weeks ago. And anyway, one of the most immediate things is paying for having my name changed. And it was $250, which I got from a good friend. But that $250 was only the court fee. So Peach and I were going over the numbers today. And between my driver's license and birth certificate, the other government agencies I have to pay, I can't fucking believe this, but I have to actually shell out more money to government agencies. So when you get your name changed, the court, right? You get this. You have to pay the court fee. The court does their thing, and the judge declares your name changed, and blah 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 blah. And after that happens, you get a piece of paper. Within a couple of weeks, you get a piece of paper. And then you have X number of days. You have to contact other government agencies and make them aware of the name change, and you have to pay them a fucking fee to do it.
Yeah.
Now, what I don't understand is why the court doesn't just take that fucking money right then and there, and then the court notify the rest of the state government that this happened. This is something that happened in-house. You know what I mean? The government did it. Why can't the government tell the government? Why do I have to do it and have to pay for the honor? So anyway, with all the different fees and the different everything else, it's going to be another $300 to pay for everything I need to change my... It's just so aggravating, and they make it hard. Like, I thought, we filed the paperwork. We gave them the $250. Filed the paperwork with the court. I got a letter back from them saying that my court date was going to be. Actually, we found out online that the court date was going to be November 15th. Fine, I'm good to go. No, I wasn't good to go. I found out really late that there's more paperwork I have to do, that they don't tell you like straight out. I had more paperwork I had to do. So now we're in the process of that now. On Monday, I'm going to hand deliver the last of that to the court again on Monday. And then on the 15th, I have to go to court, and that's when it'll be, the judge will rule on the name change. And then I can't use the legal name until a couple weeks later when I get the paperwork. It is a process that I don't understand why it needs to be this fucking process. But anyway,
the answer to that is there doesn't need to be that much of a process. But the problem is that any time these hawks basically have realized that anytime that there's a way to extract money, anything that they can decide, hey, this is something we can charge for, yep, they will charge for it.
Now, there are certain agencies of the government, the thing I need to do cost $2 to do the thing, $2. And on top of that, there's a $25 fee for them doing it. So it's $27. On other government agencies, it's just a $100 fee just to do it. And then you got to pay for the paperwork. And it's just like, are you kidding me? And there's like 4 different agencies I have to deal with. And it's just like, I don't understand why they can't just put a thing in the computer and it just trickles through the whole system.
Well, I feel that. I mean, I've got two last names at the moment, right? Because what happened was, I've changed my name. My actual name that you guys know me by, I was born with that name. And then I got adopted by my stepdad. So I took on his last name. And then when I got married, me and her decided to hyphenate our last names together. And then I had my stepdad's last name removed from my last name and my birth dad's last name put on my last name. And then after that, me and my wife split up, and so I didn't want to have her last name as part of my last name when I got married to my next wife, even though my next wife wasn't taking my last name. I didn't really want to have my first wife's last name as part of my last name while I'm married to my new wife. So I ditched my first wife's last name as the hyphenated part of my last name. So I've changed my name 5 times in my life to end up with the name I was born with, right? And the thing about that is, unfortunately, the first time I changed my name from my stepdad's last name to my half of the hyphenated name to my real dad's last name into half of the hyphenated name. First time I did that, I did it by a process in Britain called deed poll. And if you change your name by deed poll, the American embassy in Britain recognizes it. So I went with my name change documents, and my birth certificate said change my name, and they were like, boom, your name is now this new hyphenated name. Great. But because I had already changed my name by deed poll once, I couldn't do it again. So when I went to change my last name to get rid of my first wife's part of our hyphenated last name, I couldn't do it by deed poll again. So I did it by this process called statutory declaration, fine, which is legal in Britain, but the embassy doesn't recognize it.
Oh, shit.
So now I have one legal last name in the UK and another legal last name here in the United States. And when I first moved over here last summer, I went straight to tackling all this stuff. So I've got literally like a stack of birth certificates, and other documents. And so right now, the State Department and the IRS know me by my single last name, but unfortunately, because the front page of my passport still has my hyphenated last name on it, even though it's been amended by the State Department in the passport later on in the passport, Colorado would only accept my legal last name as being what's in my passport's front page, even though it's been amended. So now I have to go to the state of Colorado to change my last name to get my first wife's name off, who I've been divorced from since 1990 fucking whatever, 3 or 4. You know what I mean? So I hate the fact that I have to jump through these hoops. I showed like the federal government my documents, and they're like, yeah, that's cool. Okay, your name is this again. Boom, done. It was really simple, surprisingly simple. State of Colorado, no. As far as they're concerned, I'm still married to my first wife.
I mean, the thing is, there's 3 reasons why it's so complicated. First, obviously, money. You mentioned that. There's no doubt that that's part of it. 2, they kind of want it to be a little onerous to keep people from willy-nilly, like Variablast and that that asshole was changing his name every 4th day, and then finally all these different agencies, like it should be. But the thing is, all these agencies are separate fiefdoms. Some of them belong to different departments within the government, so that there's no cross, there's no crossing the streams. And then you got the state governments, which are separate, and government is just
it's all ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know. All I know is that we're doing the math, and depending on how many copies of certain documents I want, it's going to be like 200 and change. And I'm just like, I already paid 200 and change for this.
Right.
But it'll be another, and it sucks. It sucks. And plus, with certain things, there's like a time limit. And it's like, what do you mean there's a fucking time limit? How does there be a time limit? If I don't get that document changed, do I stop existing? What do you mean there's a time limit?
Wow. Yeah, that's a mess. Oh, but
one of them was like 40 days. It was like you had 40 days to do it. I'm like, what happens after the 40 days? Somebody come and shoot me? What? I don't understand. They take my name away?
What? You have no name. Then you'll be a horse with no name.
Yeah, well, been for the desert.
Well, before we were talking about games, I just want to let you know, I have a gauntlet machine.
Yeah, I saw that in the chat. I didn't know that. You're a jerk.
The only problem is I have to replace the power supply because it'll come on, it'll play for a while, but once it heats up, it shuts off. I actually got I got a replacement for it. It's just been sitting not done for ages. I just need to spend the time to make it happen.
I don't remember the names of the characters at this point, but so and so is about to die.
Well, it's Valkyrie, Warrior.
There you go. Valkyrie is about to die.
Elf shot the food.
Oh, Oh, that game was great.
A couple of my friends worked at Great Adventure during the summers, and they were in the arcade. You know, one guy was a manager in the arcade, so we'd have to go like later in the day, like within an hour or two of closing. But basically, they open up the machine, put like probably $20 worth of credits on for each of us, and then we would just play.
My grandmother had a shop in Patterson when I was a kid, and she had a Space Invaders table.
Oh.
And we figured out that if you unplug it and plug it back in, you can play for free. The first game. So, I'm number 3 of 5 kids. So we would end up spending lots of time there in the summer just unplugging the fucking game over and over again so we could play all day.
That's funny. Yeah, I've got I have this cabinet says Time Pilot, but it's actually I changed the board out. It's a Main Event, the wrestling game.
Yeah.
And I also have a Cocktail Donkey Kong Jr.
Okay. My brother and I used to walk to a local pizza place when we were kids to play the game Satan's Hollow. Used to love Satan's Hollow.
Yeah, that was a hard game.
Yeah, it was a good one though. We liked it.
I used to be so addicted to that game Asteroids that when we ran out of quarters, we would go search the ditches for glass bottles to take back for the 10 cents deposit you would get in glass bottles back then.
Wow.
That's how old I am, right? And yeah, so you'd find 5 bottles. That's 50 cents. That's 2 games of Asteroids. Yay. It's totally worth it.
And you were cleaning up the environment.
Well, yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I loved Asteroids, but I wasn't terribly good at it. I was so at Space Invaders, but I actually won a trophy. There was this one video arcade I used to go to. It was called Captain Video, and I actually won a trophy for the game. Remember the game Kangaroo?
No.
I think.
No.
Yeah, that one was by Atari, and you actually played. You're a mama kangaroo, and your Joey was stolen by some monkeys, and the monkeys are throwing apples at you, and you got to work your way up and get your Joey back. It was basically like a Donkey Kong derivative.
Right.
Okay. I used to like Pitfall Harry.
Oh yeah.
Pitfall Harry. That was fun.
Yeah.
You remember Pitfall, Paul?
What?
You remember Pitfall?
I don't think I ever saw it.
Well, it wasn't in the arcade. It was on Atari.
Yeah, it was Atari.
2600.
No, well, I remember some games when they came out, they were so far ahead of everything before them. They were the coolest thing ever. When Donkey Kong came out, man, that was the coolest fucking game ever. And then I remember there was a show. You might have already mentioned it because it might have been called Gauntlet, but it was like cartoon animation, but it was a video game. Was that Gauntlet?
Oh no, that was Dragon's Lair.
That was what?
Dragon's Lair.
Okay, Dragon's Lair. Yeah.
Yeah, and all the artwork was Don Bluth, who did a lot of Disney movies.
Right.
And then they had it was Space Ace, which was another one that was just like that, but it was sci-fi.
Right. Well, I mean, you mentioned Space Invaders a minute ago, and that was one of the biggest video games of all time for that era. I never really liked it. I like Galaga, which is just like it, except it's more colorful and fast paced, and it's just infinitely less boring.
Yeah, I liked Galaxian, which is basically Galaxian came out, then Galaga followed it. I think they're both made by Taito, so it's basically the same game. But
right.
I liked Galaxian a little bit more than Galaga, but Galaga was good too.
Yeah.
And do you remember Dig Dug?
What?
Dig Dug.
Oh, Dig Dug. Yeah, I love Dig Dug. I would play that right fucking now if there was one here. I would love to play Dig Dug.
Cool. Yeah, Dig Dug was awesome. Oh, and another one I liked. I wasn't as good at the arcade game, but I was awesome at there was the port over to the Atari 5200 was what the fuck was it? It was the one where you're riding ostriches. Joust.
Yeah, Joust was fun. I remember Joust.
Yeah, Joust was great.
Oh, Joust. Oh, yeah. Oh, Joust. I didn't really think of them as ostriches. I thought they were some kind of like, yeah, maybe they were ostriches.
They're
In the video game, it's Joust.
It's funny because ostriches don't actually fly, but yeah, Joust. I was so with the arcade game, but the thing was the home version was an exact port, but I was awesome on at home. I think it was because I liked the controller better.
That game, man. That game, I could play that game for hours. Like, yeah, I mean, they're ostriches. What the heck? Like, fighting, jousting ostriches is the best. So, I don't know. I have like 20 minutes, so.
Defender was another great game.
Hey, am I the only person who gets like, you get like really into a particular game and you're like really, really into it and you're like so into it and you're really good at it, and that's one of the reasons you're so into it. And you're like, man, I'm fucking great at this game. People will be amazed at how good I am at this game. And no one's ever going to fucking see you play the game. Ever. Not ever. Yeah. Not ever. But you're like, yeah, everyone's going to think I'm the best because you are the best. And but it's just,
I'm pretty excellent at Tetris, but I never can play anybody at Tetris. Although every time I think I'm excellent at Tetris, I watch like world champion Tetris players, and I'm like,
well,
I don't think it's real. Everybody move that fast.
But the Defender from my friend Vincent was really good at that one. And Raven, you were looking a little puzzled. Defender. You had a spaceship. It was a side scroller, but you had control. You could scroll in either direction, but it was kind of like a Space Invader-y type thing. Basically, there were these alien ships, and what they would do is they would come down. Your people were walking around on the ground, and they would come up and grab.
Yes, I remember. Yes, I remember it.
Yeah, and if they made it to the top of the screen, they morphed into this really, really deadly enemy unit. And the thing is, you could shoot the enemies while they're carrying your people, and the person would fall, and they go, ah!
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that was a good one. Yes.
You catch him and put him on the ground. But if you lost all your people, then you end up having to fight them in space.
That was pretty good. That was good. I remember that one. Then there was Pac-Man, which had the brilliant idea of giving Pac-Man a pink bow, and calling him Miss Pac-Man, and re-released the same fucking game.
Okay. Do you guys remember? It must have been like, I suppose 7 years ago now, when what was that? Anita Sarkeesian. That's the name of the lady. She was doing a whole bunch of critiques about genderization in video games, and she was complaining that the Pac-Man bow and rouge. I think the Miss Pac-Man has little red circles on her cheeks. And she was complaining about that as sort of genderization. And my whole thing is, if you're going to call it Ms. Pac-Man as opposed to just Pac-Man, how are you going to genderize a dot in any other way than the way they did it? I mean, if you're going to make it female, what are you supposed to do? Put little tits on it? I mean, seriously, wouldn't that be worse? Right?
Actually, I'm not sure that it would be.
The problem is, they had a brilliant marketing idea, and only one real way to pull it off.
Right.
It was a stupid thing. They made a fortune on such a stupid thing because it was the same fucking game. They re-released the same game. It was the same game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they made some changes, but yeah, it's basically the same game. And the whole thing about it is that like Miss Pac-Man actually made more money overall than Pac-Man did.
Sure. I mean, my mom used to actually have one X-Arcade Miss Pac-Man in her house.
Oh, wow.
Which, of course, you didn't have to put any money in. You could just press start and away you're off, sort of thing. And yeah, she was very good at it because she could play it every day, But the thing, the difference between Miss Pac-Man and Pac-Man isn't just the fact that the maze is different. It's because the mazes change every 2 or 3 rounds. You know what I mean? Right, so you keep on getting new mazes. So if there's a pattern to Miss Pac-Man, I never learned it, but I know for the original Pac-Man, there was like 3 separate patterns, and you had to do them for a certain amount of time, and you could get millions of points if you were fast enough and could do the pattern right.
Right. In fact, I remember buying a book that actually showed you what the pattern was.
Yeah.
But the thing is, well, see, I know now if I want to get Paul to come over to my house, I just got to get Dig Dug and Asteroids, and he'll come over.
Dig
You got
Dug,
Dig
man.
Dug.
I remember that game. Oh,
Have you got Dig Dug, Joe?
I said I don't, but I said I know how to get you to come over now. Actually, technically I do. I've got there is this you know how that, like near the end of the heyday of arcades, there started to be these many into one kind of systems where there was like multiple games in a single board, and so a cabinet had multiple games on it. Neo Geo was one of the first ones to do that, but so I haven't put it in my arcade box, but I've got a multi game that has like 34, 35 different arcade games on it. I'm pretty sure Dig Dug's one of them.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. That's pretty impressive pussy you got there, Sister Danger.
yeah, you know, I had to let my hair grow out over 2020.
Is that a Maine Coon?
No, it's actually a rag doll. So quite fluffy. Half Himalayan, half Siamese.
She's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
you have
brother.
a very pretty pussy.
He is my big chicken. Actually, he's literally the biggest cat in the house, and he's also the most scaredy cat ever. His sister is basically the smallest cat in the house, very fluffy, but actually quite tiny underneath all her fluff. And she is a brave adventure cat that will go anywhere and gives no fucks about anything. She just looks at us all the time like.
I once had a cat, and she had 3 kittens. One was black, one was white, and one was gray. And the gray one had like pretty fluffy hair. And I gave it to my roommate, who then moved away to another place like up in the mountains. And at the high altitude, the cat, who had just like, you know, kind of long, fluffy hair, it went poof like that. I mean, the cat looked like, it was like round, like a sausage. I mean, you couldn't
like a cartoon cat or something.
Yeah, it literally was like that. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know what happened. That you changed the environment, and I guess it made the cat's hair stand up more. I don't know if it's because of the altitude up there, or if it's just because it's cooler up there.
Well, when it's cold, they actually look fluffier, sort of in the. Because I think that what's really happening, all cats do that actually. Even my cats, when they go outside and it's cold, and my skinny cats, because I think that it's kind of like when your hair stands up, maybe.
Right. So they go.
You know, yeah, because it's like they're trying to keep themselves warm. So
makes sense.
It's like getting goosebumps kind of a thing, but for a cat. So a heating device.
Well, that's what thing's kind of funny. You know, we get goosebumps, but it doesn't actually do anything because we don't have enough hair for it to matter. But yeah, I'm sure it goes back to when we were simians and hairier beasts and.
So, Vegas, what is the number one? What is the source of that info? It would be nice if you shared a source. You're too smart to not give us the source. So, because I'm sure you understand the importance of the source.
Supposedly it's from the NIH, but the thing is that I remember them talking about this months ago. That that was one of the things the right wing was trying to make hay of months ago. The fact that we had given some money to that Wuhan lab, which again. Unless you have evidence that lab was actually working with that specific virus and that virus got out, means nothing.
Right. But I mean, I know I've said.
Is that a tabloid?
What's that?
What? Oh, Vanity Fair?
Vanity Fair, a tabloid?
It's a magazine. It's a magazine.
That in the line at the grocery store.
Yeah, but I mean.
Yeah, but it's Vanity, like the grocery store.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a magazine though. I mean, Vanity Fair. They have had, and they do some good reporting. I mean, Teen Vogue had some of the best coverage of a certain story last year or whatever. The whole world was like, "Holy shit, this is Teen Vogue." So it really. You can't really go by that so much anymore. But anyway, Vegas, I was saying early on in this whole thing, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing came out of a lab somewhere. But I mean, it would take some real proof.
Yeah, and basically, I remember seeing a breakdown of that where they said they're looking at the virus and comparing to others. They're like, there were certain telltale signs that said, well, if this was a human-made thing, it would look a little differently. So actually, for as far as Vanity Fair goes, I mean, Christopher Hitchens did write for Vanity Fair, so it's not a rag. Well, at least it wasn't anyway. I don't know about now,
I just feel like we have just experienced or currently are experiencing still the wave one, the initial testing phases of some kind of biological warfare out of China. Like that is seriously sometimes what I think is happening. Like this was it. This was just like, let's see what happens when we do this. And now they know all of the weak points in our.
I don't think so. I mean, they've lost a lot of their own people. It just, this isn't the way that they would test a weapon.
They have so many people that I'm not sure they've actually even noticed.
Well, here's the thing you have to remember.
Like 2 billion people in China.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing you got to remember though. See, because the Japanese did do testing of viruses and bacteria in China. Basically, they were just letting stuff loose during World War II, actually before World War II, and then during the war, and so they were the subject of that, and basically, and the Japanese purposely did not treat a lot of these things because they wanted to see how a virus or a bacteria would spread. So they're actually a little sensitive about it because it actually was done to them.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, if it was a virus that was developed in the lab, I wouldn't be surprised. If it was a virus that was enhanced in the lab, I wouldn't be surprised. If it's a virus where they were doing research to try to come up with, vaccines for it because it was something that spawned in the wild and it was all kept under wraps, I wouldn't be surprised. I just wouldn't be surprised. None of that would surprise me. But it's going to take more than rumors and Vanity Fair. It's going to take more than just about any Republican. I can think of getting up on the soapbox and making proclamations. Because they always do that shit, and 99% of the time they're full of shit. Yeah. So I mean,
plus, I mean, just pretend we gave them $10 billion to that particular lab. How would that be evidence of anything other than the fact that we gave that lab a lot of money?
Right. I don't remember what it was. There was something about some claim was made about water being discovered on the moon was proof of God, way back when, and I had made a video debunking that idea. Basically all I said in the video was the discovery of water on the moon is proof that there's water on the moon.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Well, and also the funny thing about that ridiculous line they were trying to go, but if the moon did form the way that the evidence suggests, the way we think it did, so something struck the Earth, dislodged a big chunk of what was Earth, hurled it out into space. It gravity pulled it together and it's coalesced and cooled. Well, Earth had water on it at that time, so it stands to reason that whatever water was on that piece that got ripped off would also have some water on it too.
I mean, would have frozen and is just like been up in orbit since forever. Did I tell you guys that I about that Kickstarter? Speaking of the moon, that Kickstarter that I got in on forever ago for the moon perfume that's supposed to smell like outer space. There's Ode to Space and Ode to Luna. They are the worst. Absolute worst fragrances. It took me like a year to get them from this Kickstarter, and when I finally did, I was so excited to open them. I'm like, yeah, outer space is supposed to smell like raspberries or some crazy shit. I gagged, and then I have kept them outside for months because if I bring them in the house, I can smell them. It's the worst. But if any of you guys want to know what outer space supposedly smells like, I'll be happy to bottle you up a tiny little vial and send it your way. And it's a vial.
Raven, you're muted.
So speaking of hey Joe, can you share my link again? Speaking of Kickstarters, here's a GoFundMe to help with help paying for some of my name change transactions. Hey, thanks.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, Joe, thank you.
You're welcome.
I feel like that link needs to be shortened somehow. There's a lot of extra gobbledygook in that. It probably can end after expenses.
I didn't know how to truncate it, and I didn't want to miss anything, so I just copied the whole thing whole.
Let me try this.
Oh, if there's a share this thing, there you go.
There you go. That's the truncated one.
There you go.
Well, yeah, but you can probably also just cut that off at F/transgender surgical expenses, where that question mark is. Delete the question mark and everything after it, and it'll probably still go to the same.
Oh, that second link I posted, that works.
Yeah.
That's even shorter.
Short link, yeah. So, I'm just saying.
I need a new chair also.
Or WD-40.
Or WD-40. But there is actually a chair on my Amazon wish list. Hey Joe, you got the link? No, I'm kidding.
I have a chair that is basically the chair that is behind me, except for it's a new version of it, not this broken version of this chair, and it's like pink and white, and I want it so
That's on my. That's the one. That's the one. It's a gaming chair, and it's pink and white, and it's on my wish list. It's like $169.
Yes. Oh,
And it's
I
pink
want
and white.
the
It's really cute, and I want it.
It can only be better with LED lights.
I need to look about.
There is one with the RGB lights in it. It's pink and white, and it's got the lights in the. I saw that, but that's like $250. So I'm like, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. So.
Oh, okay, I gotta go, guys. Bye.
Okay, bye.
For real this time.
Mm-hmm. There she goes. Yeah. Anyway, so
Yeah.
it was hit up on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. Some Australian guy. He wanted to talk. Wanted to do like a video chat. And I don't video chat. I just had way too many people calling me in the middle of the night.
What are you disappointed about?
Somebody down thumbed the stream.
Oh.
Two of them. Oh, there's three now. Oh no, there's zero. There's three up thumbs. I don't know.
Well,
I guess
never worry about such things.
So I had posted on my Facebook while I was chatting with this guy. He was like, oh, I think it's such a wonderful thing, that you're being yourself and blah, 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 blah. And, that there are some people who are real scumbags and they're going to want to chat with me because it's all a sexual thing. He's like, and I'm not into that at all. But I figure, you seem like a cool person. We can be friends, right? So I had posted on my Facebook at some point during this conversation a link to my GoFundMe. And the dude turns around and all of a sudden he's being a complete and total asshole. And he's from Australia. He's never been to the United States that I know of. And he was just going on and on and on about pay for your own choices and medical expenses. And I'm just like, you know nothing about the United States, dude.
That's, yeah. People abroad have no clue. I mean, when you're in the UK and you're telling people what it's like, they can't comprehend it.
Yeah.
At all. I mean, it's like, what do you mean you have to pay for the first $8,000 before your insurance kicks in? What do you mean? What do you mean you pay, thousands of dollars a year and then you have to pay thousands more before your insurance even works? I mean, how does that, that's just an alien concept to them.
Yeah, I was having dinner with a former workmate, and we were talking about that because we used to work, together. The company that we worked for was based in Canada, and at one point they decided they didn't want to deal with all the bullshit, so they were just they said, we're going to drop the plan. You guys go out and get your own insurance, and we'll reimburse you 80%. And it was a major problem because it was like, we looked and we couldn't get you can't get on an individual plan anywhere near what you can get on a group plan. And it was actually going to end up costing the company double the money for like half the coverage. And I explained this to my boss, and he was like, well, Christ, Joe, what happens if someone doesn't have coverage? I'm like, they die, Don. They die. And he's like, how does that happen? America's like the richest country in the world. How does that? It's like, we're fucked up down here, Don. We're fucked up.
That's why. That's why we're the richest country in the world. We don't pay for shit. You hungry? Fuck you. You want your kids to get school lunch? Fuck you. You want health insurance? Fuck you. Get a job.
Yeah.
This is America, damn it. Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, and we perpetuate myths that lets people that have ridiculous sums of money believe, lets them believe that they did it all themselves.
Yeah. Yep. But I mean, and he was like, oh, you don't want to pay for your own stuff, and just like, that's not it at all. I mean, that's not it at all. I am not like, twisting anybody's arm to do anything.
Right.
You want to help me out and pitch in, that's great. If you don't, okay, that's great too. I'm not like, getting angry at people or not talking to them or whatever because they don't want to pitch in.
Right.
Everybody's free to say no. Not twisting nobody's arm.
Well, that's what gets me. I mean, it's just like if you remember a few years back, everyone complained about, quote unquote, e-begging. It's like, look, you want to give somebody money, do. If you don't. If you don't, but if you're gonna make snide comments, fuck off.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, what's his face, that Poggy guy. He did the same thing. He was just like, oh, we're in the middle of a pandemic and you expect people. No, I don't expect people to do anything. I don't expect anything. I mean, I hope if they can, if I'm somebody they consider to be a friend or that they care about and they have the means to help, that they help. If not, okay, hey, no harm, no foul. I'm not expecting anything.
Right.
That's it. I mean, it's that simple. One way or the other, I'm going to have the procedures I want done. One way or the other, I'm going to have them done. It just might take a lot longer, and but whatever.
I mean, that's the thing. That's why I put that guy in timeout because he came in trolling. I was like, "Fuck you, dude! Get the fuck out of here."
Yeah.
If you want to be civil, that's great. But if start attacking people, you can leave.
Yeah, right. Toss a few bucks to creators. Now, I set up a Patreon account. I had one before. I used to make like $6 a month on Patreon for my YouTube videos when I used to make videos. But that account just like vanished. I guess if you don't do anything with them after a while, they close.
They go poof.
So I had to create a new account because I started making videos again, and then I stopped making videos again. But I do have a nice new Patreon account with 0 patrons. But
start making some videos.
Yeah, well, I'm advertising that I have a Patreon, but whatever. And again, I was never. It was never about that. I was never. What time is it? It's 10:36 p.m. So, for those of you who didn't know, 11 years ago, about right now, 11 years ago, I was in Washington, D.C. I was completely plastered and drunk. It was about this time of the day. Palace. Some of you might remember the YouTuber Palace.
Yeah, Palace 46.
It was about this time of day, 11 years ago today. He picked me up, and also it was a Saturday. He picked me up and threw me over his shoulder, and decided that he would take me to his room while I was completely drunk to the point where I could barely walk. And his plan was to rape me. And it didn't turn out that way, luckily for me, because the woman who turned out to be the love of my life rescued me. And by the next morning, we were a couple. And I think she's watching now. She might be. I don't know. But I love you, baby. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary.
You need to get yourself. You need to get yourself like one of those screenplay formats and write the screenplay, Raven.
And have this movie made.
You could have the movie made. Now here's the question, the $64,000 question. Who would you get to play Peach, and who would you get to play you in the movie about how it all happened?
Oh, who says romance is dead? I have no idea. That would take some thought. I don't know. I know one of my drinking buddies, though, could be played by Scott Clifton. because it was Scott Clifton.
I think you're afraid. I think you're afraid to put any name down as someone who would play Peach because there might be repercussions.
Of course. But I also don't know who I would get to play me. I don't know.
We'll see if Halle Berry was younger. That'd be good. She's she's a
Agreed.
she's gorgeous and a mixed race heritage. So
Yeah, gorgeous and mixed race. That's an easy combination to find.
yeah,
So,
you like me?
you would want Norm Macdonald to play you. Yeah, yeah, okay. Not seeing it.
I don't even know who Norm Macdonald is, and I don't even know what Vegas looks like, so the joke is lost.
Vegas doesn't look anything like Norm Macdonald, which is actually a good thing for Vegas. For Vegas.
Uh-oh.
But yeah, the well, I guess I would get Eddie Murphy, because when he played the dude from the Clumps, like was it they're doing when he did the Nutty Professor, the remake of it, like that hit hard. And it's one scene where actually Dave Chappelle is the comedian on stage and starts making fun of him, and like that cut deep, because I mean I look so much like the character from the movie. So, I got glasses, got the hair was the same. I dressed, crappy. It was like, ooh, it stabbed deep.
When I was younger and had hair, and if people would ask me who would play me in a movie, I used to say Rob Lowe, because back then, when I was young enough and had hair, he was roughly the same size as me, had the same color hair as me, and was much better looking than I am, and therefore someone you would hope would represent you. Right. You always pick someone who's better looking than you are to play.
So Rob Lowe is better looking than most people. Especially
Yeah, right.
he was. I mean, he's okay now. I mean, but back then, oh my god, he was one of my first crushes. He was beautiful.
Yeah. Rob Lowe was beautiful. In the movie About Last Night, it was just like a really great movie.
That was a great movie, and they also show full frontal of him. So,
well, I can't remember that scene for some reason, but I see you did.
yeah, I did. He's standing by the fridge, and he opens the fridge, and you can just see like the silhouette, and it's just like, oh shit. So,
Side scene.
Who are they?
AOD at King of Wings.
hello, Wing King.
Howdy.
See, I knew you weren't going to be here, so no cleavage.
It's all right, baby. You're fine. Just go throw it away. Oh, my.
Deep Ashtray, I want to thank you for this compliment. Deep Ashtray says that I aged better than Rob Lowe. I don't personally think that's true. However, when I was a young man and the whole, what happened?
Why don't you just say acknowledges?
When I was a young man and very much into the whole pretty boy new romantic phase of my life, Adam Ant was someone who I was like fiercely jealous of, because everyone I knew, all the chicks I knew fancied Adam Ant, all the gay guys I knew fancied Adam Ant, and Adam Ant I thought was beautiful. And about 10 years ago, I saw a picture of Adam Ant, and he looked awful, and I felt fantastic. I beat you, you motherfucker! I beat you. Finally, it only took 40 years, but I finally beat him.
I personally think that, like everyday people, over long periods of time, tend to fare better than a lot of celebrities.
Well, sure, 'cause they live rough lives.
Yeah, they live rough lives. Sometimes by necessity of the job, sometimes by choice. There's a lot of substances, and there's a lot of putting their bodies just through a lot. And they can look beautiful a long time like that, but eventually it catches up. Robert Downey Jr. Is somebody who looks fan-fucking-tastic as he's aging, and he's very, very lucky. He has had a very, very hard life by choice, and he is faring it quite well. Rob Lowe, less so.
Less so. I mean, the thing is, like, I never looked that great to begin with, but I didn't really change much. So, I'm improving by addition by subtraction. Is that? So
Yeah.
I only have a small number of grays. I mean, other than my mustache, notwithstanding, but.
Vegas, they do live rough lives in some respects, absolutely. But they tend to have drug issues. They tend to take all kinds of stuff to enhance all kinds of different performances. They put on weight, they lose weight. They put on weight, they lose weight. They put on muscle, they lose weight. They put their bodies through a lot. Just being rich doesn't mean life is rosy. In order
Prince
to
was
make
57 when he died.
What was that?
Prince was 57 when he died. By the time Prince was my age, he was dead for 2 years.
Oh, you're 59?
Huh?
You're 59?
Yeah.
Dude, you look awesome for 59.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, though. I mean, I think just regular everyday people tend to fare better as they get older because they don't put their bodies through the stress that a lot of celebrities do.
I put my body through an unholy amount of stress. I treat my body like it's some kind of fucking rubbish tip, and I can't believe that I haven't paid the price.
So, Tim Minchin, that's his name. It's like Tim Minchin says, sometimes I fill it with wine.
Yeah, but who was it in the comment section said about how some of his favorite celebrities are older than dirt. When you go to the concerts, I mean, I don't know who you're talking about. When you might be talking about like the Eagles or the Doobie Brothers or something like that. I don't know. All I know is, I mean, the band I've seen the most times in my life, I've seen Yes, I think 7 times, and the last 2 times I saw them was the year 2000 and 2004. And in both those concerts, I am miserable to have to report that everybody was sitting down for the whole show. Right. And that's just really a natural feeling at a rock concert, and but that's how it was. I mean, the audience would say, okay, occasionally people would stand up and clap and do the thing, and then they'd sit back down again because, arthritis.
I was at a concert where everyone was sitting. Everyone was sitting. But we didn't have a choice, though. Right. It was while I was in basic training. They marched us all out to watch the damn Yankees, and we had to sit in formation and sit through the entire concert.
Damn.
That was miserable as fuck. And it was the damn Yankees. But, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we don't, it's not like the old days. I remember a friend of mine, we saw Ozzy. We were third row center. We got scalp tickets. Third row center. It was Vixen, White Lion, and Ozzy. And once Ozzy went on, we were standing on our chairs, and we did not get down at all. And I got a terrible Charlie horse, and I'm like, I'm not getting off this fucking chair. So at one point, Ozzy is like off on the side doing crazy shit, throwing water on people. And there was this girl who apparently had a light colored top with no bra underneath. And so he doused her and everyone's going crazy and all that. And at one point, so the people in my section sat down because Ozzy's way over there. At one point, Ozzy comes running back toward the middle of the stage. And we're the only ones standing up. And we're close enough to the stage that the light's hitting us so he could see us. So he comes right over and he's like, right at us. We're like, we're going crazy. Like, Ozzy acknowledged my existence. I can die now.
Yeah. I totally like it when you get the attention of somebody on stage. I've done it a few times. It's great fun.
So you guys are familiar with Queer as Folk, the American version?
I've never watched it, but I know of it.
Yes.
There's the one character, Lindsay, she, lesbian, blonde hair, pretty girl, right? She was on the queer as folk float at the New York City Pride Parade, and I was wearing a feather boa, and it was going by, and I kind of held up my boa, and I'm like, and she yells out, "I love your boa!" And I was just like, "Oh my God, Lindsay acknowledged me."
That's awesome. I was at Shea Stadium years ago. It was probably must have been 2006 or 2007. Basically, it was because it closed after 2008. So anyway, I'm there with a work friend. It's actually the same friend I saw tonight, and we're in the Diamond Club, and Jim Brewer did the national anthem, and so he's coming in and shaking hands, and he sees me, and he's like, "Hey man!" It's like I stood up, and he put his hand out and grabbed my hand. So that was cool.
Yeah, I don't often get starstruck, but sometimes I've been to concerts and been like, wow, I'm in the same room as Prince, It's like, because even though it's like a big auditorium, it's still one room, right? So
Right.
I think
That's true.
But the last time I saw Prince, though, was at Ronnie Scott's in London, which has got a capacity of like 250.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it's pretty small. And that was really cool, especially because there was lots of famous people there in the audience. A lot of sort of VIPs and whatever. And I'll tell you what, right? Y'all know I'm a big fan of Prince, of course, but I mean, twice in my life, the first time I saw Prince was the Purple Rain tour, and we literally spent the night on the sidewalk in January, so we could buy tickets the next morning, right? And we got there at like 10:30 at night thinking we're going to be the first people there. And there was already like 25 people in line or something like that. And so I did that for the first time I saw Prince. And the last time I saw Prince was in London. And I got a text message from my best friend in London. He's like, "Hey man, I just heard Prince is going to be at Ronnie Scott's tonight. That's all I know." And so I got into London, and by the time I got there, I was number 289 in line. And I get there at 3:00 in the afternoon, and the show's not till 11. So I had to wait all day in the fucking drizzly London rain, hoping that there would be two performances. Because if there's only one performance, I'm 39 people past the capacity. So I'm not going to get in unless there's two performances. Unfortunately, they made two performances. And fortunately, people didn't just stay for both. So a lot of people did leave the first one after the first one. And so I did get in.
So
I didn't get in until 10 minutes to 2 in the morning, and I got there at 3:00 in the afternoon.
there is not now, nor was there ever, a celebrity or a person that I would wait that long to see.
Literally, there's not any other person than Prince that I would ever have done that for.
There's nobody. I just no. If I got to stand in line for more than 50 minutes, I'm done. They're not worth my time. Not doing it.
The only time I ever camped out was we wanted to get Iron Maiden tickets. This was on I think it was the Somewhere in Time tour, and so we went to this theater, here in New Jersey somewhere, and we camped out, and so I ended up like taking turns. One of my fraternity brothers drove, so we were taking turns sleeping in the back seat. And earlier in the evening, there was this homeless guy who was talking, and there was this a young kid. He's just like, he was taunting the homeless guy, and the homeless guy's telling us he was in Vietnam, and he was in the 101st air assault and all this kind of stuff. And this kid's like, tell him, "Ah, fuck you, old man, you're nobody, nothing, blah blah blah." So so the homeless guy leaves. So I'm in the car, and I'm like taking a nap. And then I wake up, I hear the sound of boots, and I stick my head up, and I just in time to see the guy walk past me. And now he's got his BDUs on, and he's got his M1911A2 on his hip, and I see it go right by. I'm like, oh fuck! And he goes over and he pulls that, the homeless guy. He pulls it on the kid, and he's like, well, was I in Vietnam? Was I in Vietnam now? And we were all like, oh fuck! And one of my fraternity brothers, he's one of these guys who like, whenever there's trouble, he's always trying to negotiate like a settlement, and he's like interposing himself. I'm like, dude, get the fuck away from this shit. You don't want anything to do with it. They talked the guy down though, and he didn't shoot the guy, but it was like, oh fuck.
You mentioned Vietnam, Joe. When I was a kid, I just assumed that I was going to turn 18 and get drafted and go fight in Vietnam. I was absolutely shocked when the war ended. And I was even more shocked because the draft ended like literally the year that I was going to turn. I think either the year I turned 18 or the year before I turned 18, but I still had to register for the draft, even though there was no draft anymore. But yeah, that was pretty scary. And I remember when the war was still going on, I was only like 10 or 11. And me and my dad had an argument at the dinner table because I'm like, man, if I get drafted, I'm not going fighting no Vietnam. No way. And my dad's like, if you get drafted, you're going to go and serve your country and all that kind of stuff, you know. And I'm like, no, I'm like, screw that. I'm going to go to Canada. You know, that's where my head was at the time. I'm like, I'm not going to go shoot some strangers that I've never met. That doesn't make any sense. You know, that's where my head was at when I was a kid. I don't know those people. Why should I kill them?
Yeah. Well, that was a good place to be, and it still is. Like I remember when I found out that the war was going on, because I was a kid and I had seen, like World War II videos, on TV and everything. And I remember hearing that we were at war, and I remember being like panicked that like somebody was going to bomb us anytime soon. And I remember for like a week, I'm like kept checking the skies to make sure no one was bombing us. And then after that, nothing happened. I realized, oh, okay, I guess it's going to be okay.
Listen, I think I want to wind the show down and talk to y'all afterwards. So I'd like to say goodbye to the audience and thank them for their friendly participation in the comment section. This has been quite a jovial and very easygoing stream this week, which I appreciate. Joe, you missed out on all the talk about Alec Baldwin. So before I actually sign off, have you got anything of interest to say about that?
Well, I mean, all I can say is, I mean, obviously, I feel horrible for the families of the dead, for the dead people, the families of the dead people. And I feel especially horrible for him because obviously it wasn't his fault, but he's the instrument, right? So, it's not his fault, but he's still, I'm sure, inside he's got some culpability. He pulled the trigger. So, I mean, I know I would feel horrendous. I don't know if I could live with myself after that, even though obviously I didn't intend to do it. I would still feel horrendous. So I feel bad for him that he's going to have to suffer through this forever.
Yeah,
and I really feel like whoever fucked this up, like somebody cut corners somewhere. What it comes down to, somebody cut corners, and they should be nailed to the wall.
Well, I mean, ultimately, someone will get nailed to the wall. Someone will fall on their sword for Alec, or Alec will end up getting a prosecution, whether he gets actually convicted or not. It wouldn't surprise me if they try to charge him with accidental homicide or something like that. I don't know. But I have kind of mixed feelings about it, because on the one hand, I really feel strongly that if you're handling a firearm, it's on you. What happens? The possible exceptions to that being people who are impaired, like toddlers, or other people who are impaired. But generally speaking, if you're of sound mind and you got a gun in your hand, to me,
I think part of the problem was that he was supposed to be firing at the camera, which apparently what he did. So it was part of the shot.
Right.
So in a way, I mean, here's the sick part is, I mean, the cinematographer is not responsible for the gun being fucked up in whatever way it was fucked up, but they set up the shot. So they actually have some culpability in their own death. But I mean, the thing is that was not supposed to be an operable weapon.
Right.
It was supposed to be, a prop weapon or something firing blank. And granted, somebody could still get killed with blanks. But it's a failure all around, because I mean, they could have had somebody set the camera up, make sure the blocking and everything was correct, and then have everybody leave.
I hear that, shoulda, coulda, woulda, the last words of a fool, right? I mean, that's the thing. We can always look back and go, well, that's because we talked about it before. I don't understand why real guns are ever on a movie set, ever. Or you should be able to have like a perfectly realistic facsimile and then CGI the special effects, because you don't need to have real. You can do that nowadays. You know what I mean? And Raven was saying that they do that in some shows, and then I think that I mean, you almost never see real animals in movies anymore because they're all CGI, with the possible exception of well-trained dogs, you know.
Right.
But even in some of those dog movies, a lot of the dogs are CGI'd or whatever, you know, or at least part of them, you know, especially the parts where they're talking. Anyway.
Well, no, because one thing you can even do is you can film real dogs and CGI them into shots.
Well, something's got to be done because this kind of accident, no matter how rare it is, doesn't need to happen. And like I said before, I don't really even feel comfortable calling it an accident. It's a situation where there's someone along the line was extremely negligent and it cost people their lives. So,
well, I have my feeling is that, well, I still would call it an accident. However, every single accident is preventable, not necessarily by all participants in the accident, but like you said, somebody screwed up something somewhere. Every single accident, that's how it was.
Well, it's only an accident in the sense that it was unintentional, but that's why I prefer to call it negligence, because, you know, if people were paying attention, it wouldn't have happened. At least one person dropped the ball.
Probably several someone's.
So yeah, CGI weapons are just not be hopelessly negligent. Right. Okay. So here we are. We're almost exactly at 3 hours. So I will thank everybody again in the comment section for being so jovial this week and relatively low maintenance. And I will see you all again next week on the Breakfast Club. In the meantime,